This video contains subject matter that may be offensive and disturbing to some people. If you are the type to require a warning throughout a video or show, let this message serve as your warning. This channel discusses the harsh reality of true crime. If this warning is not sufficient for you, consider a different genre and unsubscribe from my channel immediately. Yo, what's going on, freaks? Just want to make sure everybody's here. Later on during the show, you guys can ask questions. Although it'll make it a lot easier to see if you put it in one of those super chat. Then I'll be able to see what you're typing in. All right. And thank you up there, the last two, to Lee D, Marine Co., Zozo 3 times there, thank you, and Sarita and Kubi, thank you very much. Very cool. So, tonight we have on Dr. Colleen Fitzpatrick. She's a really cool person. I've talked to her a few times over the last, a couple of years at least, and about different things here and there, and always interesting conversations. I'm always feel like I'm a little bit smarter after I get done talking to her, but while talking to her, I feel like a total idiot. You get what I'm saying? Anyways, hold on a second. Let me flip over to that screen. So here she is, everybody. Can you say something? Can you? Let's see if we can hear you.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
See, she is there.
Mary had a little lamb.
Yeah, there you go. Colleen Fitzpatrick. All right. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your how you got started in doing? You're obviously a forensic genealogist, or early into genealogy, and been doing that for a long time. Pretty much started it.
Yeah, I started it. I didn't get into it.
Right.
I started.
Yeah,
it,
she
okay?
started it.
Make sure you get that right.
Yeah.
I wrote a book called Forensic Genealogy. That was hobby for hobbies, how to identify old photographs using just simple things that nobody really was thinking about. And then as time went on and I got more into DNA, I realized about 2010 or so that the markers at that time, really the hot item was Y DNA, and genealogists were using it to trace their family lines. And I realized the markers used for genealogy were the same as the markers used for forensics, and that if I had a Y DNA profile from a cold case, I could compare that to the genealogy databases and try and get a last name associated with the crime. I did the first time I think I did it was on the Grim Sleeper case that was in LA. And I didn't get a name, but the detective was at our house. We were going over the case, and I was able to tell him that his suspect was African American, and that was really the first real solid indication, and that was only the male line of the family, of course. So I probably did like one thing for the Orange County DA, just briefly, but the real beginning was that Grim Sleeper. There was so much more to that story that I probably cannot tell you I gave anything really super significant. But the real start was in Seattle in, I think, late 2010. I was up there on a genealogy conference, and I went a day early to talk to the Seattle Police Department about my idea of using Y DNA in genealogy to solve crimes. And I have to tell you, I was almost laughed out of the room.
Wow.
And there were two detectives and a DNA director, a DNA person there. And the detectives just gave me a hard time and said, no, it's stupid. Not stupid exactly, but why DNA recombines, and you never know, and nah. So I didn't quite understand what their problem was until much later. But and one of them, we got up to leave, and I asked for the guy's card, and he wouldn't give it to me. He said, "Yeah, I know where to find you." But the DNA lady caught it. She knew, she got it, what I was talking about. And she said there was a case that they kept coming to her about every few months. And that if the detectives came to her again, they would pass on my information, and that they were free to contact me at that point. So a few weeks later, that was the Y-DNA on the Sarah Yarborough case. That was the first case really where genetic genealogy made a difference. We did not solve it with the Y-DNA, but we eventually solved it with autosomal late last year. And that won the fifth place in the International Cold Case of the Year competition. Out of 61, I think it was 50 entries from 20 countries, something like that. That was fifth place.
Oh, nice. Yeah, so you also are a founder of the DNA Doe Project, right?
I sure am, with Margaret Press. I left in June, but they're spinning on. They're doing well. And we were actually we did the first two identifications using autosomal DNA SNP testing before the Golden State Killer hit the news. You didn't really hear about it so much because, it was nice cases, but not like the Golden State Killer. That's what really set the tone for the world, that changed the world.
Yeah, now you have your new, I don't know if it's a new venture, but your Identifinders. When did that start?
2011.
So it's not new,
I've been
everybody.
doing that.
She's been doing it on the side.
No, it's just that it was kind of eclipsed by DNA Doe.
Yeah.
Because of when you do John Does, you can be a lot, let's say, more, not liberal, but you can do more things than if you've got violent crimes you're working on. It's more, we didn't want to go to the violent crimes because at that time you have to go back in your little genealogical time machine. At that time, it was a hot item about genealogists and law enforcement using their data. And we wanted to do John Doe's more as a humanitarian effort. We thought that would be more acceptable to the community. And it was. And we, nonprofit, raising money, doing well. And so we didn't do the violent crimes. We stuck with the John and Jane Does. And we learned a lot about DNA. We kind of set the tone for that. And we did 2 solves before the Golden State Killer.
Wow. So Identifinders was just sort of, we didn't hear about it very much, but it was on the side the whole time. It's been there.
Well, yeah, I want to say there was a reason, because when I did that Sarah Yarborough case, it sort of came into the news for various reasons. I got a name for their killer, and that the detectives thought it was worth putting in the newspaper. Interesting story about that. And when that happened, it turned out the name was Fuller, and the list mom, the administrator of the Fuller Genetic Genealogy DNA Study, Y-DNA study, absolutely freaked that I had used her data in her group, public data online, to try to solve a cold case. She was also the list mom for a very prominent DNA list with many thousands of people, and she just went bonkers on the list, flaming and screaming at me, even though I used public data. So from that on, I had to be kind of low key about this law enforcement thing, because I didn't want to keep getting hate mail. I was getting hate mail, and it was very upsetting. And then when I solved the Phoenix Canal murders in 2015, that was the first case solved. And that also was 5th place on the cold case hit of the year 2 years ago. When I solved that, the police department I could have gone in the news and told everybody, but they asked me to stay low. Don't answer the media because they didn't know what to do with it. You know, it's a brand new way of solving cases, and they didn't know first legally anything, but also they didn't want to themselves get in hot water for doing something that they didn't understand what they just did.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because had you got publicity for that, some, you know, maybe you would have been part of the Golden State Killer solving, right?
Well, I actually was on that team doing the Y DNA, but I was not involved in the autosomals. So Barbara Ray gets a tip of the hat for that. Let's just say it didn't work out that way, and it was solved by somebody who's really good and really worth it. I'm glad to see that. And the guy got, you know, we started a revolution. So it could have been, I was part of the team, but not in that capacity. I want to say, though, I'd like to comment that I actually had a meeting with the Golden State Killer unit down in Irvine, and that was, I think, in 2012. And this was the era of Y DNA. When I went to that meeting, I have some view graphs I prepared. I still have them. And the view graphs, when I got there, I proposed, I said, you know, they're using autosomal SNP testing now. And I said, how could we do this? Could we get the police officers, could we get firemen, military people to donate their DNA to a GEDmatch-like database to be used by the authorities where we could solve cases like adoption cases, but use it for violent crimes. And at first they were like, but then later the detective told me, hey, you know, that's kind of interesting idea.
Yeah.
And I went to, I continued, I talked to law enforcement. I was doing Y DNA, kind of a lot of different agencies. And one of the agencies, when I presented it, said that they didn't think it would work because if you ask like the police agency to give their DNA, all the cops to donate, they may use it for union negotiations for contracts. Like, we'll give our DNA if you give us as concessions in the contract. And so I had another agency say they didn't want to do it because, they said, and there's crooked cops too,
Yeah.
Well, it turned out the Golden State Killer was a crooked cop. I mean, let's face it. It was an idea before its time. But I will remark that I went to that meeting and I saw it was too much of a battle to fight. GEDmatch at that time was only 2 years old. It was very small. The whole thing was getting off the ground. With 23andMe was ramping up. It just wasn't the time to do that. But now that is.
I remember I mentioned to you one time, I think it would be a good idea if they, they're already collecting DNA from inmates for, the, what the hell's that called? The,
CODIS?
CODIS, yeah, CODIS. So if they're already doing that, why not just upload it to GEDmatch, and that's automatically part of what law enforcement gets to use. You'd have millions of samples in there. You know what I mean?
Well, the problem is that actually is a good question. The problem until now has been that the crime labs don't do SNP testing. The crime labs are all certified, validated, policies, procedures, training, yearly review or revalidation every year, making sure you don't mix up samples. That's all in place for 30 years. The crime labs don't do SNP testing. So if you want SNP testing, you've got to send it somewhere else that doesn't have those that over wrappings of, legal wrappings. And
but maybe there could be like a bulk, because all they really have to do is do the spit thing, send it off, and then somebody working in law enforcement automatically downloads the profile, uploads it to GEDmatch.
Well,
right?
we're getting there. No, we're getting there because number one, Verigen has like the machine to do that, and some of the crime labs have already adopted the basic machine that can give you SNPs, not the whole shebang, but it's called forensic. And the Verigen, this kit can give you ethnoancestry. It can give you eye color, hair color. It can give you some Y DNA. It can give you X DNA. And so some of that is already, it's been used in the UK and some labs, crime labs in the United States. So that's the first step. The second step is right now, maybe January, they're coming out with a kit that runs on the same machine that can be uploaded to GEDmatch. Now, since the machine is already in some of the crime labs, you can see where that's going.
Oh,
that
good. Oh, yeah.
Now you
Yeah.
won't have to go to a separate vendor.
Oh.
And I'm a big fan of that, to right at the beginning have a meeting saying, we're going to do CODIS, but what about genetic genealogy? How much DNA do we have? Are we going to go for that? Can we go for that in this too?
Wow, that'd be absolutely incredible. What was
Yeah.
when they, I think I've gone over the reasoning. Remember, there was 1 million people in GEDmatch, and then they did the wrong. It was an assault, a violent assault, but it wasn't a sexual assault or a murder, and so that was outside of their guidelines. What kind of effect did that have when they shut it down to what was there in there? 0 at first, and then it just.
Yeah.
I mean, that must have been
Yeah.
a nightmare. Yeah.
It's about, I'd say it's just short of 300,000 now. So that's respectable. We've solved some cases using that. Then family tree DNA, that's interesting. Family tree DNA was discovered, quote unquote, that they had been collaborating with law enforcement, and now they have this big business where you upload to family tree, because GEDmatch is only part of the story.
Yeah, I just heard recently that came out regarding the Golden State Killer, that they were actually working with the bigger companies somehow behind the scenes.
Yeah, they were already, in fact, yeah, let me tell you, they were, whenever you do like a DNA thing in a lab, you always like to have a backup. You always do, a lot of times you do 2 labs. The main lab and then the other lab will have the same answer, hopefully. And FTDNA was the backup lab for the Golden State Killer. Cal DOJ was the main lab. Is that right? No, we're doing SNPs. Okay, I don't know who the main lab was, but Family Tree was definitely one of those 2 labs, and that was late 17, early 18, maybe a year before it came out in the news that they were doing this. So, they got some, now, they spun it to be, instead of, yes, we betrayed our clientele, they spun it to be, and now how could we even dream that the genealogy platform we invented could be on the really forefront of crime solving? It's all right. So now it's a database we can use.
So you are I was going to say grandfather, but so the grandmother of the entire forensic genealogy. Right?
How about I'm not that old?
Okay.
Come on, I'm like, how about just the mom or something?
Okay,
or
yeah,
founder,
the mother of it. Okay, you gave birth to it. There you go.
Something like that.
Yeah, you don't have to be the grandmother. Okay.
Yeah, something like that. But it's absolutely true what I'm telling you.
Yeah. So, tell us about what's one of the more crazy cases that you solved where you're just like, oh my God, it was nuts, but you.
Yeah, I mean, God, let me pull out my portfolio here.
Hey, before you do that, somebody did actually just ask you a question. What is autosomal DNA? Because you brought that up a few times.
Oh, okay. All it is just the DNA on all the chromosomes. It includes, we all have 23 pairs of chromosomes. It's the DNA on the first 22 pairs. So, the other pair determines gender, and it's a little bit funny. It's not like the other pairs. So really, it officially includes the first 22 pairs of DNA. And when you do autosomal SNP testing, a SNP is like a point, a marker on that real estate, on.
But it's like a little segment, right? Like
No, a SNP.
Okay.
No, wait, SNP, CODIS, and YDNA, like genealogists use it. They use markers called STRs, and the S stands for short. So those markers are short, long, short, long, short, long. They're real estate. They're pieces of real estate. A SNP is a point. This SNP, S stands for single. So those are just points. So you generally have like 20 STRs if you're messing with those. And then SNPs, you might have 600,000 to 1 million SNPs because they're just points.
Okay. Maybe you'll have to come back on sometime with actual slides and stuff. You can
Yeah,
see, you can
whatever.
send them to
I can do
me
that.
because I think it'd be cool if people really had a decent understanding of it by visually looking at what you're
Yeah.
saying. It's hard to
Yeah,
visualize
I
something.
do that. I do that. I have slides coming out of my ears.
Yeah.
I teach lots of people, and they all come out with a little light bulb over their heads.
Yeah,
So,
there you go. That's right. Okay, so what was that one case that I interrupted you when you were about to mention a crazy case that you solved, or one that you think about a lot, like, wow, that was amazing,
it's every case is like a child. It's different. It's really different. And the one, God, we solved several. Let me see. There was one recently for the Orange County DA I solved, and it was from 1968. Jane Doe found here near in Huntington Beach. A young woman just found at that time it wasn't developed, so it's like farm, just plain dirt. And she was found in a drainage ditch. She had been raped and killed. They had looked the best they could, and they didn't know where she was from. She had shoes on from New York. She had something in her pocket, like a nightclub from New York in her pocket, a card. She had a phone number from a roadside zoo in Florida. And the authorities looked in Florida and New York. And, okay, I think they had some DNA left over, but I think they exhumed her and got some DNA from her remains, having been buried since 1968. And that DNA went forward, and we, analyzed that this was for Orange County DA. And we did it in about a week. And the reason I bring that up is it was when we first looked at the data, it was like normal GEDmatch data, whatever that means. It wasn't like jumped out at you at the answer, and it wasn't so bad you'd say, I just can't do this. It was, okay. And I told the detective, this lady's from Maine. He goes, oh, well, how do you know that? I mean, I just opened it, and it took me an hour. I said, because all of her matches are from Maine, so she has to be from Maine. Okay, this was like a little epiphany. And then, so we started whatever we do, connecting, building family trees, all that stuff. And along the way, I found like a little cluster of people that were related. So I figured she was like in the cluster. Let me turn that off. So she was in the cluster as well. And anyway, we started, kind of focusing down on the corner of the tree. But we were kind of tied up with French Canadians, which all have 10 children each. So every time you think you made progress down the tree, there's more 10 children. And you got to figure out which one of those 10 children. So in the middle of all this massive amount of genealogy, we decided to contact a second cousin that he's got a family tree. He's the family genealogist. And on Facebook, he looks really friendly, got a lot of family pictures, and he's ex-military. So we think, police call him, he's okay with it. It's not like a very elderly person that gets startled by a call from the police or something. He's he knows. So we wound up telling him what was going on. He says, no, my family's really big. Yes, I'm from Maine. I don't know anybody that really, most of us stayed in Maine. I don't know who this gal might be, but I'll ask my relatives. So he wound up that day and that night kind of buzzing through the family, asking for anybody who knew anybody that moved away from Maine. So the next day he sent us an obituary. He said, I found one of the relatives that that mentioned some stuff. And it was a relative named Connie, and she died. She was from Maine. She died in 2015. And it tells about her and says, survived by, saying a few brothers, and she's one of 7 brothers and sisters. So she survived by a couple of them. And then at the bottom of the obit, it says, and predeceased by her mother, her father, 2 brothers, a sister, and her sister Anita, who has not been heard from since 1970.
Oh, wow.
So, that led to, but the interesting part too was that We contacted the family. We kind of sorted it all out. Yes, that was Anita. Okay. But they told us, which was interesting, is that she had gotten in a truck with 2 friends to drive to California. And she was just that kind of gal that would want to see the world. She wrote her mother a letter from California saying she was doing well. She had a job. She was staying with some friends. And that she would come home to Maine in the next few months. We never heard from her again. A couple of years later, one of the family members hired a private investigator, and this was probably in the early 70s, to go out. The letter came from Whittier, California, which is probably would take me about half an hour to get from here. And it had an address. This is where she was living. So the private investigator went to Whittier. He, explored, whatever. This is in the early 70s. Tried to find out from the people that owned the house who was living there, and it was really a high turnover, so they couldn't do that. And then I think the house had been sold, so it went nowhere. But the private investigator was only a few miles away that's in LA County. She got killed in Orange County, and they had been looking for Jane Doe for the last few years, and they never connected.
Oh, wow. Just right there.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was like that. And they almost got it, you can see, but they didn't. And it was a close call that cost about 50 years.
But it eventually got solved.
Oh, yeah, it got solved. We did it in about a week because of that obituary.
Right,
The cousin sent us that, did a little bit of research, and it was like within a week, if it hadn't been for that obituary, we'd still be at it with all those Canadians.
I noticed that, just doing what I do, newspapers.com is what I use, and it really helps.
Yeah.
You can actually find somebody and then go back in time if they were a criminal and find all these past things that they've done, and even when they die in the obituary, and then you find their relatives and everything. So it's probably really helpful for you guys putting things together. Right?
It is. I do want to mention there's another genealogy bank, another service. And I like Genealogy Bank better because the search engine is easier to use. It's cleaner. It's more understandable. And it has a lot of newspapers that newspapers.com doesn't have.
Oh, really?
And it's not linked to Ancestry, let me tell you that. But that's probably why everybody goes to newspapers.com. But Genealogy Bank, I really like it, and I'd like try it out. Let me say try it out because I like it. And it works.
I'm all for. I look up cases and I find all the articles. Like, for example, the case that you just sent me the other day. The unidentified hitchhiker in Alabama.
Yeah.
I found probably 10 articles right when he was found, and then worked through it all the different, the tattoos and whatnot. And, even it's pretty interesting just going through that.
Yeah. And that's the kind of case you really want to solve. Here's a teenager, 15, 17, however old, not an old person. Evidently had a rough time. He told his parents were divorced and he was going to be put in an orphanage or something. He just seemed down on his luck as a young man. And, so he was in a car accident, and I think the car hit a guardrail and went into the water, and he died. And
so you think right there. Yeah, I think we're as a group, we're interested in donating to help out, figure out who this is. One thing I was thinking, when you look at this picture, he looks totally different than the let me see if this is it.
Is that the morgue photo or what?
Yeah, that looks like a legit. He looks like a regular person. If you go open up the, I can't remember what website that was. Was it NamUs?
Yeah, it's either NamUs or maybe the Doe Network.
Yeah, I think that's a ludicrous drawing right there. I don't think he looks like that at all. I think that might have hurt. Look at this guy's hair goes up much higher. Ears aren't quite really little and rounded. It's a different angle.
The problem with the face on the Doe Network is it looks more of a baby's face. It's not the long face of a teenage boy. It's a round face of a baby.
Yeah, so I was kind of well, that's not going to help. They should have, what I don't understand sometimes is when you have a victim and you just find them a day after they got murdered, but they're unidentified. Why not just take?
Hi, I'm on the phone. I
Oh.
can't talk. Who's this?
Oh, I wasn't even paying attention. Hold on one second. All right. Oh wait, that's not it. Oops, I got the wrong thing up on the screen. I just got the wrong thing on the screen. Hold on a second.
I have no idea what that was all about. Okay. Anyway.
Yeah.
What was that? I missed something for a minute there. I'm sorry, I got distracted. Something went on in the room.
I'm trying to remember now. Do you guys remember what I was just about to say? What was I saying?
No, it was the boy, and the boy's face was too round, and it was longer. And I was commenting that, it may have hurt the identification because it makes it look a lot younger than he probably was. And you were puzzling over what website.
Yeah, I mean, I think they made him look like this weird, almost like a creature in that thing.
Yeah.
Where he looks like a regular kid, maybe even good looking, whatever, had the little blonde hair and it was tall, high on his head. And, here's what I was saying. If somebody dies like the day before and their face isn't mangled, why don't they just put out the picture of their face? It's like, I don't understand that part. It's like, that's them. Look at them. They're, everybody, a family member would recognize the face. If it was the actual photo, but instead they go, well, an artist's rendition. Well, you didn't need one, right? So that's something that's a little bit strange.
Well, it's too that when somebody dies, they don't necessarily look the same way when they're alive. And the artist rendition is where, I know a lot of forensic artists, I know that we're trying to use artificial intelligence to recreate faces more realistic, but you may not want the morgue photo. It may be disturbing to somebody to know that's somebody that's dead.
Yeah.
And also it may not you try and get the artist to make them look more lifelike and alive.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be photographic identical when the artists do that, because people will say, oh, that doesn't look like him. But if it's too realistic, the people that see it say, oh, that's not him.
It seems like though you could take like this guy, because that was a pretty good picture of him, and take it straight on, and then maybe just redo the eye, I don't know how they would do that, but at least you'd have the hair right, the ears right. Yeah, everything would be right, and maybe just work on the eyes a little bit because they were closed. Instead, they got this guy with the ears way down here, and they're round, and the head squished in. I don't know. It was kind of strange, but So what we'd like to do is help out, fund some of the, I guess cases that come up that are in places that don't really have the funding.
Yeah.
The complete funding.
Well, this is a good one. This is Bibb County, Alabama. It's just rural. It's been since 1961. It's gone through the hands of Three Corners, the one that's CW West that's doing it now. He almost knew nothing about it because he sort of knew the previous guy just died not too long ago. And it's one of these cases that kind of got lost in the network. But if you want to solve any cases, this is a young man. He had his whole life in front of him, and he had, shouldn't somebody try and bring him home, even if it's a broken home, or try and help him?
Yeah, no, it's it's not a criminal case, but it's still like it's totally it's like I think it'd be great because it's similar to the one that we tried to get solved, the Summit County John Doe, or I think it was in Colorado, but I guess apparently there wasn't any relatives in the system. I guess it didn't link to anybody, but this guy could definitely have some maybe brothers he didn't know about or sisters that are
and being so young when he died, 15 or something.
Yeah, something like that.
He probably has brothers and sisters still alive. It could be one of his parents is still alive. We don't know that. But he could have aunts and uncles. He could have brothers and sisters, even if they're half brothers and sisters. A lot of these long-term John Does happen to be transients. In other words, they're passing through an area, not necessarily homeless, but they happen to be passing through for some reason, and nobody knows who they are from that area. And the family doesn't know they were there. They could have been, just somebody. I'm a young person, suppose I take a trip and I just don't to visit a friend somewhere. I don't tell my family.
Well, it sounds like he might be from like South Carolina. They said that he left home because his parents were separating, and his dad said you're going to go to an orphanage or you can join the military. So he could be maybe 17 or 18 years old.
Yeah,
and
he
left.
Could be.
So he left the home, and then he was it looked like he was heading to California, like he said he was doing. Because if you look at the map from where he was, it looked like he was heading west. But we don't know for sure. But yes, it'd be great to be able to identify this guy.
Yeah, and he's the kind of case, also Caucasian European, which is good for autosomal SNP testing, or we call it the ancestry sort of test.
Yeah.
And he's young enough. He may have relatives out there. He was ready to go in life. If anybody deserves to be identified, it's kind of like him.
Yeah. My buddy Cairo asked, what's the next big thing Mrs. Fitzpatrick is working on to push cold case solving through DNA to the next level?
Well, we're working all kind of things. We're working on highly degraded DNA, how to get more and more from less and less. When you have skeletal remains, you're not going to have a 55-gallon drum of DNA to work with. You're just going to have a little drop or two, and you just got to make do with what you have.
55-gallon, huh? That's
yeah. So I'm teasing guys. So we're doing a lot of work in that area. Just really old cases, trying to pull the DNA out like crazy, trying to make it work. We do that, and let's see, we're trying to recreate faces using artificial intelligence on, taking more photographs and bring them back to life, by, if a person's laying down, that face looks like this, they get up, it looks like this, certain rules you follow. So we're working on that. And trying to mixtures too. We're trying to do better ways to separate mixtures, because if you have a violent crime, a sexual assault, you'll have a combination of male and female, and it's a big pool. You got to have some way to separate it, so you have your killer on one side and your victim on the other, and we're pushing that forward too.
What's interesting to me, I always thought was interesting, is one cell has a complete DNA sample. Right?
Yeah.
But it's like at some point it'll get down to that. They'll be able to take a female and a male, okay, grab one cell piece, boom, we've got the complete genetic. But at this point you need a certain amount, right? So maybe you could talk about that.
You can have a few cells. I think the lowest that DNA DOE we did was probably like 10 cells, 15 or 20 cells. When I worked on the Titanic baby years ago, of course this is Armed Forces lab, very high specialty lab. I think they made that final identification of the child based on one cell, the DNA in one cell.
Wow.
So we're getting to that point. I don't know how low the lowest is, but I do know I've heard in the news a few cells.
Yeah, I mean, apparently it seems to me like the FBI has some technology now that's way better than they previously had for detecting DNA. I don't know if you know what it is, but man,
I don't know.
It's incredible.
I don't know. They don't tell me.
They don't tell you. They should be right.
But I don't know what it is. But if they do, good luck with it, because I want to use it. Make sure it works.
Oh yeah, definitely seems like they've got something out there.
Yeah.
So
at least they're going to make you believe they do. So.
Okay, so you guys have some questions you want to ask? I mean,
yeah, like nobody's asked me any questions. I feel like a question orphan.
Yeah, well, the thing is, there's so many things to talk to you about. That's the thing.
That's an excuse. But yeah, go ahead, ask me. Ask me a question. Let's see, my favorite.
Well, no, I was going to have them ask you questions. What did somebody say?
That's what I said.
Because I've already talked to you about 5 times. It says you have a platform to suggest regular citizens in volunteering their DNA, and what can we do to help promote that?
Okay, what I would suggest is the best way to donate your DNA is to take an Ancestry or 23andMe test and upload to GEDmatch.
There you go. And that was Jessica
That was
Schuba.
easy.
Yeah. Wow. I was expecting more detail there.
No, and opt into law enforcement. No, that's it.
Yeah, well,
Very
tell
simple.
us a little bit about that the Titanic baby. Like you just mentioned that
Okay.
really quick, but that's
You
pretty
know,
cool.
now, okay. Well, I will. It was, that was one of the, let's see,
We're
one
gonna
of
go
the
way
first
back in time.
cases. Yeah, I'm saying, gee, I solve violent crimes, sexual assault, rapes, murders every day, and people, I'm just wondering, gee, I was hoping for more questions than that, but,
They
uh,
haven't been they've been listening to you, so I tell them on my channel to pay attention. So they just now starting to type the questions in.
okay, you're being kind. You're being kind.
No,
Um,
I'm being truthful. What makes touch DNA
yeah,
different from other?
the Titanic baby.
Okay, go ahead. If you, how about
What do you
tell
want?
the
The Titanic baby.
yeah, tell the Titanic one, but then there's questions coming in.
Yeah, wait. You got garbled. It was like, what? I don't,
No,
and I said, what?
well, let me actually. No, here's what it says. Okay, what makes touch DNA different from other, like blood or hair or whatnot? That's what somebody asked.
Oh, let me tell you, that's really interesting. The problem with touch DNA, it's very low level DNA, which is fine, but it can be, really open to contamination because, if you have lots of DNA and you have a little bit of contamination, it's not going to make any difference. But if you have a little bit of DNA and you have contamination, it's going to make a big difference. And what's interesting is whenever I go to these forensic conferences, I sit in everything. I listen to everything. I don't care, what, if it's genetic genealogy or whatever. And I heard a fascinating talk about how DNA can survive the laundry. So if you have, let's say, somebody's playing with a baby one night and they put it to bed and they take the baby's little onesie and they put it to the laundry the next day. The dad goes off to some business trip. The kid's found out to be harmed or killed in some way. The dad's DNA can still be on the kid's clothes from the night before. And that would be, sort of a contamination relative to, and even if you look at John Bonet's type story, they said there's DNA on her panties and stuff.
Could have been there.
It turns out that DNA could have been from the factory workers manufacturing her clothing.
Yeah.
DNA survives like crazy. And if I come and, open the kitchen door cabinets and looking for something and I leave, that DNA could be there for a very, very long time.
So touch DNA is a little bit more circumstantial than direct evidence because you could be, like if there's a guy that you think was the rapist and they don't even know each other and you find touch DNA, that's probably a good chance that's going to be.
Okay, let me tell you. That's interesting because
here we go.
Okay,
it's gonna reverse it.
Up. Yeah, let me say this. There was a case in Beverly Hills, and I forget the name. It was an Indian doctor and his wife, and these guys broke in the house. They tied him up. They stole all their stuff, and they ran away. The problem is they put duct tape on the doctor, and he couldn't breathe, and he died. He suffocated because he couldn't breathe. The paramedics came in and, helped him, got him to the hospital, whatever happened, they cleaned it up. And they went behind and they tried to get DNA from, anywhere they could off the crime scene. And they got a couple of Hispanic guys. And there was another guy who was this homeless guy down in LA County. And they couldn't figure out, they said, well, he's mixed up in the crime, and they went to go arrest him. And he was in prison, he was in jail, whatever. His DNA was at the crime scene. They couldn't figure this out. His attorney, they appointed an attorney, and they said that this guy couldn't have been there. Everybody knew he was on Skid Row. He was a friendly guy. He'd be fine. He'd go drink himself silly, and then he'd be in the gutter, and he'd be in the hospital again. Then he'd come back. He'd go buy a bunch at 7-Eleven and whatever. We all knew him. And it turned out he had drunk himself silly. He was in the hospital that night. He couldn't have been at that crime scene. And then they thought maybe he had his, hospital bracelet, the wrong guy, and he gave the wrong name, and it was somebody else. But no, it was him. And the only thing that could figure out why his DNA was at that crime scene was that the same group of paramedics had come to the robbery as has brought him to the hospital.
Wow,
and they used the same little finger thing to get the oxygen. They put that on. And probably his DNA was left on that when they went to the crime scene, and they did it to the doctor, and that's
Wow.
why his DNA got
Yeah.
on the doctor.
So DNA, if you had a good attorney, would be able to fight through that.
Maybe.
But if you had
maybe.
like blood or semen or something like, then it's pretty tough to get out of that one.
It's worse than that. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to get out of it. The only thing with sexual assault, you can say it's consensual, and then you have to, it's another battle. Or if there's like DNA on, somebody gets killed, there's DNA somewhere, but there's other DNA from a boyfriend or another person. They can always say, well, it's his fault.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, Dennis Stewart up here, he said he's been cleared finally. I don't know if you knew that he was the one in for the Schnee-Oberholzer case.
What is it? Oh, really?
He called you up the
Who
other
was
day.
it?
Well, Schnee-Oberholzer, Dennis Stewart. I guess you talked to him a while back because he.
Oh yeah,
he had the last name that was part of a group that they were. He's been cleared.
No.
He said.
No, he's fine. I just told him don't worry about it. That's just one name in a big.
Well, actually, what he said was, or not really. I am now only a suspect, as anyone else is a suspect. Right, when they say
correct.
anybody
He's
could have
fine.
done it. Right, okay.
Yes, I could have done it. I wasn't there, though. What was it? I was 15, 20.
Well, but that's old enough.
No, I could have been there, yeah. So, okay, what else? I mean, I want people to ask me questions, but I guess...
well, here's the thing is when we do this another time, we'll get it set up. I'll show you how to set up where you can be looking at the chat at the same time. So you can put it off to the side. And then you can see there's been other people have asked a lot of questions.
Okay. All right. Well, so I'm here, and I don't know, what else I can
tell you.
I do consulting for the Orange.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, boss?
Yes. I was going to say, Cairo up to ask there, what do you drink when you're winding down for the evening? If you have
water.
Just water. God. Not like a little, Glenlivet or something, or
I really should. I should tie one on after a day like I get. All you do is talk about rapes, homicides, robberies, violent crimes, stabbing all day. You need to get away and take a drink.
Yeah,
you need to really have a tie one on.
Hey, after some of my shows, I almost want to just put it in my IV. It's.
Yeah, I know. It's I'm thinking I'm in a group with a bunch of detectives, and we're talking about something, and the conversation turns to certain female body parts that are found in unusual conditions in different places, and and I'm thinking, okay, and then happened and stabbed and that way, and her arm and leg, and they find, and I'm just listening, and suddenly it occurs to me I'm at no cocktail party. I mentally transport myself to a cocktail party, and all these guys like we're just talking, and I go, no.
It's crazy.
It's just all professional. You get used to the blood and the guts and the descriptions, and it's more like you're separated from it. It's not your relative, right? You're separated from it.
Well, when you're on here, just act separate, be however you feel like being.
Yeah, I am. I'm exactly I feel like being. I'm wearing my Scotty vest, and I'm wearing my forensic T-shirt. It says, you see, I don't think you see this big. This is from ISHE conference. I'm wearing my forensic T-shirt.
Yeah, that's right. I think that the year I went to CrimeCon a couple of years ago, you went to a different one or something, right?
Yeah, I had to go somewhere else, which was boring. It would have been fun at CrimeCon, but when this organizers of the conference ask you to come, and there's only 20 people, you might as well, it was fine. It was fine. I hope it never happens again, but it was fine.
Yeah. Well, believe it or not, I keep seeing people up in here say they want to hear about the Titanic, baby. I know.
Okay,
it's probably listen. I know it's a story that you probably tell at every single event that you ever.
I don't mind. I just didn't want everybody to think that's all I can talk about. In other words, I didn't want to have that fallback because nobody wants to hear anything
I don't
else.
think anybody thinks that at all. I think everybody in here goes, wow.
You say, oh, come on, just have her tell her the Titanic baby story. We're tired of this.
Yeah.
That should eat up the time.
Yeah, hold on. I have it in my notes right here. If everything fails, Titanic. Okay. I got it right there.
It's like the Titanic, right. That's how I feel like my life is sometimes, the Titanic.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the deal. I was working with the Armed Forces DNA lab, and I had done the hand in the snow case. And when that was over, I said, hey, boy, this is like super fun. And I said, are you working on anything else? And they said, yeah, we're working on the Titanic baby. I went, woo woo, sign me up. And what happened, the Titanic sank. Everybody knows the Titanic sank. But there were like 300 and something bodies that were picked up in the ocean. They sent a salvage mission out from Halifax. And the Mackie Bennett was the lead ship of 2 or 3, Minia, Mackie Bennett. And when they got there, I mean, they were horrified to see all these people floating in the water, these dead bodies, hundreds of bodies. And they collected as many as they could. They collected 300 something, and they finally had to bury quite a few at sea. They didn't have the supplies. They didn't have the coffins and the burlap and the salt, the embalming fluid. So they had to bury a lot at sea for health, to follow the health laws at the time. They couldn't come into port with just those bodies. So of the 300 and something, there was just one child. And it was like body number 3 or 4 was a child. And of course, these guys are confronted horror with all these bodies, and then one's a baby, and that makes it worse. They brought the baby to Halifax, they gave it a funeral, and they buried it in Fairview Lawn Cemetery. The outline, the layout of those graves is like a ship, and the baby is buried at the point, at the prow of the ship. And it's kind of up a little slope, and they have, unknown child on the Titanic, baby found in the water. And after, in the 90s, they had a card, they had a description. There was some effort to identify as many bodies as they could, and they did do some of them. They had pictures of some of the bodies, they had descriptions, they had a lot, especially if the body was found with money or something in the pocket, right? That helped identify him. Well, there was this baby, and they put on a card, a male about 2 years old, wearing this clothing, little shoes, little petticoat. And so they buried it, and all they had was the card. So in the late 90s, there was a family in Sweden who believed that was their child, their relative. There was 6 kids on the Titanic within range of being 2 years old. And so the question is that the family thought, the Paulson family thought that it was their relative because the mother was found with the tickets in her pocket. The mother was buried near the child. There was a lot of reasons, circumstantial. The family petitioned the Canadian government, because now it's a national monument, or a special area designated by historic place. And so they exhumed the child with 2 other graves. The other graves were full of water, so they couldn't really do anything. But in exhuming the child, they found 3 baby teeth and a piece of wrist bone. And one of those teeth had dentin in it, a bit of soft tissue, and they thought they could get DNA out of it. In the meantime, they had pediatric dentists and odontologists come in to estimate how old the child was, and they said, I think 15 months, 2 years, something like that. And they said it was kind of on the young side. So when they figured out they could do DNA, and they had 6 children. There was 2 from England. There was a Danish child, a Swedish child, an Irish child, and 1 more. So there were 6 from about 5 countries. And they took a long time to track down the relatives of all of those families. And it has to be mitochondrial DNA, because mitochondrial turns out to be easier to harvest from really bad remains. And so to do that, it makes it easier for the lab if you use mitochondrial.
Isn't that like hair? Hair can have that?
You can have it in hair. In this case, there was no hair. That was just the teeth.
Right.
And it took a long time, because you have to find a family reference, and mitochondria is transmitted along the direct female line. So you had to go to my mother, her mother, her mother, her mother, her mother, mother, daughter, 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 and that the name changes every generation. So it takes a while. Mm-hmm. And so they found family references for these 6 children over a period of probably several years. And they ruled out 4 immediately. There were 2 children left. There was a English baby that was, who was 19 months old, and they had a Finnish baby who was 14 months old. And based on what the odontologist, the pediatric dentist said, they said it had to be the younger child because the teeth, believe it or not, your teeth grow from the top down. It's not like carrots that grow from the roots up, the top down. So the teeth didn't have any roots. So they thought, okay, it's a young child. The teeth were not worn out because they had been chewing solid food. They said it has to be the 14-month-old child, the Finnish baby. So they had a big ceremony. It was like world news that they identified this baby. And then the trouble started. The shoes of that child were in the Maritime Museum in Halifax. And the shoes were too big for a 14-month-old child because floating in the water for a week, the shoes would have fallen off. So this became maybe it was wrong. Maybe it wasn't the Finnish baby, but didn't DNA say it was a Finnish baby? And no, it didn't because it was a tie. So they did, when they did the mito, they didn't do all the mito at one time. They did sections. So they did like section 1, and that ruled out 4 of the 6 because it didn't match. So they said, well, let's just do some more DNA. So they did section 2 on the mito, and it still matched. It was, the Finnish baby was 1 step off, but because the living people you are testing are so far removed in the family tree from that baby, there's a chance that there was a mutation in the DNA. So you got to cut DNA some slack when you're dealing with real distant relatives. Okay, so they say basically it's tied again. So the 2 children on the mito had a maternal common ancestor within the last 2,000 years. mother.
Yeah.
So there was a problem. So then I went out and I did the Y-DNA. I found a male relative of the English baby, the Goodwin family, and I found the guy living in Australia. I found a couple of relatives in Australia, only to find there was no more Y DNA in the teeth. So we got to scratch the Y. Then the lab, in a last-ditch effort, they had the rest of the mitochondria, not section 1, not section 2, but it's called the coding region, which is everything else. And the lab went and looked at SNPs in that coding region, the normal ones they use, and the babies were tied again. So they really did have a common female ancestor in 2,000 years. So they finally looked in the literature. They found a SNP, a marker, that could be used to break the tie. Last-ditch effort. This was like in the scientific literature, and it was there. They knew it, and it just hadn't been ready for prime time yet. You know, the labs didn't commonly use it, but it was there. So they tested the final remains of these 2 kids, and there was the Finnish baby did not match. So it had twice it didn't match, and the English baby did match the remain. Another English family matched the remains. So it was conclusive that that child was the English baby, Sidney Leslie Goodwin, and that last test was done based on the DNA in 1 cell of the child's body, because by then it had been chewed up, eaten up, all 1 test, section 1, section 2, Y, all the rest coding region, and then finally they just had 1, and if they hadn't hit it, it would never have been identified.
Wow.
Is that what you wanted? That's the story of the Titanic baby.
Yeah, that's what people wanted to hear. So what else you guys got? I was going to leave it up to them to ask their questions.
I'm here. Come on. I'm the expert. I'm the guru, whatever. Here, let me get my hair a little straightened out so you believe it.
Yeah.
Even gurus can't get haircuts, by the way.
Especially during this crazy time.
Yes, I am confined to my house like the rest of the world. Isn't that awful?
Well, you need to buy one of those old Flobies. You remember those? They were like a vacuum cleaner that cuts your hair, and you just kind of, but you can set it to different lengths, and you just go.
Maybe that's what I just did.
Yeah, it was very close. How long does dry blood give DNA evidence?
Could be. You know what? That's a good question. Sometimes for decades. It's not so much. In fact, the labs sometimes dry blood out. They dry the samples out to store them. It could be decades. The question is, How is the DNA stored and how is it cared for over that time? Is it refrigerated? Is it kept in a dry environment? I think they've gotten DNA out of mummies.
Does it matter what kind of surface it's on?
I would imagine it does. You got to make sure first the surface is not contaminated. I think they're talking about a crime where blood's all splashed around and it dries up and people need to come out and collect it. I think it would be there for a long time. A year. You'd hope they solve the crime before a year goes by.
It sounds like they're interested in a specific case, but they're just being passive about saying what it was.
Yeah, they're being kind of dangling it in front.
Yes. Now, what if it's on a piece of wood that was burnt already? Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Come on.
Okay.
Yeah, tell me. Yes, right.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, yeah, they wanted to know about the hand in the snow story.
Oh, okay. Another old, golden oldie.
I'm gonna let you tell the story. I'm gonna leave for just a second. So you're gonna be on the air, staring straight at the camera.
Okay. I'll yes, boss. Okay. Is this the way to do it? All right.
Okay.
Hand in the snow. I was minding my own business. I was in Guatemala City, doing nothing, actually getting dental work. Long story for another time. And I got an email from, I'll make it kind of a little bit shorter, from a genealogist, but it referred me to the Armed Forces DNA lab because they had contacted him about identifying a frozen hand in a glacier in Alaska. So sitting in a hotel in Guatemala City, getting dental work, this attracted my attention. And my life is kind of crazy in those regards. So I answered back and I said, yeah, I'll help you. What's going on? They explained that there was a plane crash in 1948. It was the Northwest Flight 4422, and it crashed in the backcountry of Alaska. And there was no way really to get to that place. It was a plane, it was a charter flight of merchant mariners flying from Shanghai to LaGuardia Airport. They had been on a year-long tour of the world to deliver oil all over the place. They got to Shanghai. They were relieved by a crew making about 1/10 the money, and they were flying to LaGuardia to go on leave. And the plane took off from Anchorage on a refueling stop because in those days you couldn't just fly. You had to hop, refuel. And shortly after they took off from Anchorage, the plane just flew right into a mountain, and there was a fireball. They saw it miles away. They tried to reach the area, and plane didn't work. So this plane crash became a legend in the area. And story was told about what happened. The next day, Northwest Airlines executives and the FAA and the air crash people flew over the website, flew over the site of the crash, and they saw the tail sticking out of the snow in the glacier, and so they were able to identify what flight it was, and there were no survivors. There was no. So that story went forward for 48, the late 90s. There was a couple of pilots that decided they were going to go find the crash. That was their hobby, right? They work as pilots, but in the off time, they're still pilots. So they went into the backcountry Alaska a couple of times, and they became glaciologists. They studied how the glacier had moved. They looked at satellite photographs when they became available. They looked at NASA photographs. They did survey of the glacier, and they found out that the plane had sunk in the glacier, and over a 50-year period, the glacier had moved 2 miles. So they thought the plane might be in there, but glaciers being glaciers, there was there's waterfalls inside of glaciers, there's lakes, there's all kinds of stuff going on. So they didn't know if the plane even could be found. So finally they went up like 3 times, and I think in like 97, they just couldn't deal with it anymore. You can only get back there like 2 weeks out the year, and you have to carry everything in. The terrain is, so these were young pilots in shape, and they couldn't find the plane. Okay, so they gave up, and they were on their way out, I think in 97, and they did something kind of stupid. They, instead of walking on the sides of the glacier that are safe, they walked through the center, and they could have been killed, but instead they found wreckage of the plane. It was right in front of them. Now the reason they did was very interesting, because this was 97. In about 1960s, there was this really bad earthquake in Alaska. It was a 9 point something. It was one of the largest quakes ever. And if you look at pictures of Alaska today, some of the roads are displaced by 10 feet this way and 10 feet this way. And when that happened, it was because the Pacific plate subducted the North American plate, and it had an earthquake. But when that happened, it rubbed and it created a lot of friction that released heat into the snowpack, melting the glaciers down to the 1948 levels right when the pilots got there. So the plane ordinarily would have been covered, but it wasn't. It was exposed, and that's when they arrived and they found the wreck.
Wow, that's crazy.
And they didn't really tell anybody because they weren't supposed to be there, right? But they arranged in the next couple of years to have the legal permission from the Park Service to do that. In the meantime, the legend about that plane crash grew, and what was supposed to be just payroll originally on the plane for the guys to go on shore leave turned into $20 million worth of Chiang Kai-shek's gold, if anybody could find it. So when they went back in 99 and said, hey, we'd like to go find the plane crash, we'd like to find the plane crash, they said, the Park Service says, yeah, go ahead, but don't bring anything out with you, referring to Chiang Kai-shek gold, just in case it was right. So they found the plane, they went back, and they were going to do a debris field analysis. You know, pilots do that kind of thing. And they found a frozen arm and a hand laying in the debris in the glacier, and it was just perfect. I mean, it had, fingernail beds and fingerprints.
Like perfect DNA, there. Really, right? Perfect DNA.
And they thought, now this was 99, they thought that their body was attached to it because it was so perfect. So they collected it. Turned out it wasn't. It was just they dug under it to make sure the body wasn't. When it was severed right here, you could see metal striations where metal just cut the arm off. It had fractures. The whole thing was fractured. Boxer's fracture. And at that time, DNA was not real good, but they tried DNA. It didn't work. I mean, it was a 50-year-old hand. They had been frozen for so many years. So, like, the DNA probably had freezer burn, not to be funny, and then they tried fingerprints, that didn't work. Anyway, so they embalmed the hand and they put it away. But the pilots kept researching the people on the plane and even the plane serial numbers. I mean, they knew everything. And then they heard that some people were working on the Titanic baby. And they figured, gee, now that was before I got involved, but the Titanic thing was going on before I was there. And they thought, oh, well, if they're doing the Titanic baby, maybe they can do the DNA in the hand, in the snow. And they pushed that forward, and finally, the Armed Forces Lab didn't want to take it because they wanted to, just help servicemen. They worked with SIL, the Central Identification, JPAC, SIL, and all that. But because it was a military charter flight, they finally accepted it. And also they accepted it because the Punch Bowl Cemetery is in Hawaii. It's got like 800 unknown soldiers from the Korean War, and they are all embalmed. And there was a big program trying to figure out how to undo the damage of embalming that was caused by the embalming fluid. And they figured since the hand had been embalmed, if they worked on the hand, and it had been embalmed in the 90s, and it was a 50-year-old hand, that might lead them to new ways of going to the Korean War people who had died in the 50s and had been embalmed. So they said, we'll accept the hand, whatever. And they were able to finally pull DNA using many new techniques, pull DNA out of this 50, 60, now 60-year-old hand. And in the meantime, the fingerprint experts were involved, and they developed this way of rejuvenating the fingerprints by dipping them in this lemon type stuff.
Oh, wow.
And it would poof up the fingerprints and make them, more viewable, because now the hand was, gone. The fingerprints were almost invisible. So they dipped the hand in, they warmed it up, and they kept checking, and the fingerprints came back. And then they did a fingerprint. Rolled the fingerprints. They took the dermis off, they put that on Play-Doh, and they rolled the I think the skin was on the little Play-Doh balls that they rolled to make the 10 print cards. And the fingerprints were better than you can do in a police station. So they had the fingerprints, they began to do the DNA. There were 30 victims. There were 24 passengers and 6 crew members. And the fingerprint went forward. They were trying to find the fingerprint cards of these military people from back in the 40s. And in the meantime, the DNA, we were trying to compete who would do it first, And the DNA, by the time they contacted me, they had ruled out, I think, 25 of the 30 people, and they had 5 left. So I think it was number 25 they got stuck on, and it was a cook, a 19-year-old cook called Ole Jacobson. And they couldn't find Ole Jacobson anywhere, anything about trace of him. So that's why they called me, to see if I could find Ole Jacobson, 19 years old, from New York. Of course, I found him in an hour, because that's what I do every day. But you're talking about the Armed Forces lab with the people in the white coats and the pipettes that don't do genealogy. You ask me, I'm going to find him. So I found him in an hour. I said, listen, he's from New York. Here he is in his census. By the way, his name is Olin, and it's not Jacob's son, it's Jacobson. And they don't know how to do all that. But I say, okay, this is what you do. This is the mom. This is the dad. Just look for the birth certificate, whatever. And so I said, this is really cool, but I'm so glad to help you. And then they came back. I was kind of watching the emails because somehow I got on the mailing list. And in the end, a few weeks later, they found a relative who was a Lutheran minister on Staten Island, gave his mitochondrial DNA, and it did not match. So I think at that point, I think they had 5 left. And I was like on the mailing list, kind of watching, okay, they ruled that one out, they ruled that one out, kind of doing the same thing. And I'm just sort of a casual observer. And then they got to the last one. 29 were gone. They had number 30. And that was, if that didn't match, something, maybe there was a spy on the plane, that isn't on the passenger manifest. Or maybe somebody sent their dog's DNA over time. You could have a lot of things. Maybe their neighbor's DNA. Who knew?
Yeah.
And so this guy was born in 1911, and it took me every trick in the book I could find to realize his mother was from Ireland, and find the small village in Ireland she was from, and be referred. All the Irish know each other, so they'll say, oh, I can't help you, but you ask my cousin Patty, he might know something. And you go through, and finally I call this guy Morris Conway, and I said, this guy is a ex-alcoholic. He's coming home from work. His private cell phone rings, right? He thinks it's his wife asking him for a quart of milk pick up a quart of milk or something on the way home. And instead, he hears an American voice say, hi, I'm a consultant for the Armed Forces DNA lab in the United States. And we're trying to identify a frozen human arm and hand in a glacier in Alaska. And we think you can help. And you have to understand, this is like a Kodak moment for the Irish guy, in this village. And after a few seconds, there's sort of silence on the other end. And after a few seconds, he said, you want to run that by me again? And I said, okay, yeah, frozen hand, arm, me, Colleen, and he said, okay, well, I tell you what, can you call me back in an hour and let me just kind of think about this? No problem. So I'm watching the clock, and it was explained to me later that he called his wife, and he said, you're not going to believe what just happened. I don't know if this is a scam. And the wife says, well, it's not aluminum siding. It's not life insurance. Maybe she's telling you the truth. So let her call you back and kind of talk a little bit, find out what's going on. And he said, so call him back. He says, well, write this to me in a letter, send me a letter. And because it was really kind of before the internet took off, he says, write me a letter, and then I'll respond. But in the meantime, I'll ask people in the village if they know anything about this family you're looking for. Okay, so he says, call me back tomorrow, and maybe I'll ask around. Okay, the Irish know everybody, right? Everybody knows everybody else. All right. I call him back the next day. I'm watching the clock. I can't sleep at night, right? And he said, well, I really didn't want to tell you this yesterday. He said, but actually, I'm the caretaker of the cemetery, and that family is buried across the street from my house. And he read me the memorial stone that had all the right names on it.
Wow.
That was the dead, right? I got to find the descendants to do the living part. And he said something else. He said, my name's Morris Conway. My mom's name was Kathleen McNamee. Her mother's name was Bridget Sheehy. Her mother's name was Ann O'Shea. And I think her mother's name was Drum, and that was the name I was looking for. I was looking for a sister of a woman named Ellen Drum. And he says, I think my great-great-grandmother was Drum. And at that moment, he was the guy, because those were all females. So I could use him if he's right and he's telling me the truth. And that's Ellen, his great-great-grandma is Ellen Drum's sister. I've got it made. And that was like calling somebody out the blue, 1 in 7 billion. And that was the man I could give the DNA, and we identified the hand using his DNA.
Yeah, so your memory's just not quite there, though, I've noticed. I'm just kidding. How the hell how do you remember all those names? Like you busted like 47 in a row. Like, that was pretty amazing.
I've told the story before, so I could pull up a cheat sheet, but that particular set of names is not. And I want to say that later, the airplane pilots, sponsoring this whole thing, gave us first-class tickets to Ireland, Andy and I, so we flew out there. And I got to stand in front of that tombstone of that family. All the people that had stayed behind in Ireland while the rest came to New York, And I tell you, that was a very powerful moment when people, you can believe in the afterlife or not as you wish. But I have to tell you that all of them were standing right there with me saying, we helped you. Now, please go home. Leave us alone. We've had it. You're done. But they were all there with me. It was an experience that.
That's crazy. Like a lot of serendipity in there too.
Well, it's a lot of serendipity. I left out most of it. A lot of hard work. But I do want to tell you, at the end of the day, I dialed that phone number, and that was 1 in 7 billion. I got it, and that identified that frozen hand.
That's crazy. What are the odds, everybody?
That was the first forensic case I did. Great. It was, and it wasn't the last.
Yeah.
I got a taste for, got a taste.
Hey, Zozo was saying something up above, and I've talked about it a lot, was, all these cases, you've got a lot of these people that have been on death row, and then DNA comes forward and exonerates them.
Yeah.
And it's, how many, do you think that, I bet you we've executed a lot of people in this country that were absolutely innocent. Well, I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that's why nobody wants to go test the deceased death row people.
Right.
Although it would probably solve quite a few cold cases that are not really. I think that they don't want to know. It's better not to know.
You mean like just the DNA that can, blood that was found that convicted somebody like in 1972. That you could then retest that blood again, and it turns out, whoa, it wasn't even that guy. They don't want to know the answer to that question.
Well, beforehand, he was executed.
Yeah.
But, you could, if he has a tissue sample available, or you could exhume him, why not try and do that and solve a whole bunch of other cases? And the answer is, you don't want to go there.
I sort of get that a little bit. I mean, imagine, but here's the thing: is we know by the numbers that you have 50 people like let off of death row in a 2-year period or something like that.
Yeah.
That means every single person, all the people that are on death row probably 30 years ago, 40 years ago before DNA were just executed and never were given a chance. So I think it's a lot of people that proclaim their innocence.
Back then, of course. Back then, what do you have to go on except circumstantial evidence? Maybe fingerprints, maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe eyewitness accounts, which are terrible. Don't count on those.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. So are you still okay hanging out here, or you getting tired?
I am definitely. Yeah, absolutely. I love hanging out with you, Gray. You know,
Yeah, it is fun. We've actually had long conversations just on the phone.
we have, and it's always fun to, talk to you and kind of just kick around a few things. We talked about Delphi for a while. That was pretty cool. I love those maps you make. They're just, I really like. I can't say I have a lot of time to listen to your podcast, but
Yeah.
if I did have any time to listen to any podcast, it would be yours.
Oh,
And I love the map you did with Delphi.
Yeah.
I really love that.
I didn't pay her to say that, everybody. Okay.
No, he didn't pay me to say that. No.
I'll send you the
No.
check later. Hey.
Yeah. Send me the check later.
Yeah. So, what do you think in the Delphi case? Do you think? I know that I got you contact information. You contacted Jerry Holman, but maybe who knows how that, what that went. But I think that they must have had DNA in the case because at CrimeCon 2 years ago, the one that you didn't go to that I was talking about, I think it was Jerry Holman met with Paul Holes, and that would kind of only be the only reason that meeting would have been set up, I would imagine. So what are some of the things? Go ahead.
Yeah. So what's your question? What are some of the
Well,
things
what are some of the things that, let's say they did have DNA, but they're just Paul Holes uses a phrase, they have a tough road to hoe. Okay. So what do you think something like that might mean? I know this is speculation, so.
Yeah, if they had really good DNA, it'd be already gone, approached and done. There are many things. First of all, it could have been touch DNA. It could have been, on their clothes. Who knows whose DNA was on their clothes? Excuse me. It could have been a family member. Could have been somebody, the housekeeper, taking the clothes out to the laundry. So whatever it is, if there's any DNA at all, it's very low level, and it could also be a mixture. That when you get low level DNA, as I said, it could be, and it's not even saying that the guy even touched them. I excuse my ignorance. Were they just stabbed or strangled?
Yeah, the thing is, there's that information hasn't been released. It was described as an unusual crime scene, and that there were multiple signatures.
Okay.
So it's really something kind of crazy going on.
An unusual crime scene. I don't, who knows?
What does that mean?
They were down by the water, right? By a river?
Yeah, they were like 50 feet from the river, so they tried to escape across the creek, or they were forced across by the same person. One of the shoes was on the other side of the creek, but they were forced across the creek, and then they were found 50 feet from the edge of the creek on the other side.
Yeah.
And so,
they were probably, first of all, that's interesting because they're probably wet. Their bodies were wet, right?
Yeah.
And then
Lower
that
part.
would probably, what?
Their lower part, like it was pretty shallow. They took I could actually load this up on here if you want to take a look.
Yeah. I'm saying that the water would definitely, not help DNA analysis.
Yeah. But what do you think are some of it could also be that the ancestors didn't upload anything to a genealogy service, right? I mean, doesn't that occur?
No, you have to process the DNA ahead of time. You don't know if anybody, you have to have, and it could be that, I don't want to tell you something interesting. When I called Jerry Holman, he said, I'll give your name to the DNA lab. They'll contact you, something like that. And if there was no DNA,
there wouldn't
he
be
would
a
have
lab.
said, we don't have any DNA. But he said, I'll connect you with the DNA labs. So there's got to be DNA there.
That's
right?
an interesting observation. For sure.
Isn't that interesting? So, it could have DNA there. It could be, I doubt they have a nice pure DNA sample. And the complications could be that it's low level, don't have a whole lot. It could be it's degraded. It could be it's mixed. Probably, I'm going to guess it's a mixture.
Yeah. So let me show you. I'll show you this right here. So they were dropped off right here, then walked down this path, across this bridge right here. A couple photographs were taken on the bridge. We've got those. We know exactly where those were. And then they were made to go down the hill right over in this area. And then there's actually a second hill because there's a private drive. And then so there's a hill after the bridge down. It's a really poor topographical representation.
Yeah.
Then
okay.
down again, and then the shoe was found about right here. Now look at on the map here. See how it's really shallow right there, where you got the sandbar right there, and so then they were found like right in this area right there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So the shoe came off before they went across the water.
Right, and they were obviously
strange.
they were probably still alive when they were going across the water. So
Yeah.
stuff happened on that side. So you
Yeah.
kind of figure out like, they were murdered on that side in this area.
They could have been running away, and she lost her shoe.
Yeah, they could have been running away. Maybe the guy had a gun, and he caught up with them and forced them, and then he ended up killing both of them right in this area right here.
Yeah, I will remark that you'd say, how could he get both of them, right? Because there's two, and one would run away, right? Or you'd have to do one, and by then the other one's run way far away or something. But if you two girls that are good friends, one is not going to leave the other. They're going to stay together.
Right, that's actually what they say. Everybody says that. Law enforcement says that, and so does the grandfather, Mike Patty, says that, one of them wouldn't leave the other. And so
he could be holding one down, and threatening her and say, "I'm gonna kill your friend if you walk away," and that girl's not gonna walk away. She's just gonna be the second one.
I think a sad thing to realize is one of them saw the other killed before before they were killed themselves. Must have been very terrifying at that point.
Yeah. So it could be that they, the DNA is very low. If for some reason it's been compromised. So they have a very tough DNA sample, and that usually means a mixture would be my first guess. If they were raped and there was lots of DNA there, there would be a different story. But these girls were not older, sexually active. These are younger girls. So they can't say consensual. They can't say, but if there was DNA and it was a sexual assault, they'd have that already. But that wasn't it.
That's one of the things. Early on, somebody called me on the phone who had a relative that was running for an office, and they had inside info like that. And he said that with this crime scene, they were just shocked at how little DNA there was, but I guess there was some, but nothing really happened like that of a sexual nature where there's semen and left around.
There's I forget the name of the principle. It's the exchange principle that if you commit a crime, you're going to leave your DNA. You're going to exchange stuff with your environment. So the environment, you leave stuff behind, but you take stuff with you. So whatever you get on your clothes doesn't matter because it's gone. But I wish I could name it. It's the exchange principle. It was like invented by a French guy 100 years ago. And they say too that the other half of it is if it's a crime scene, then the person is going to leave stuff behind, whether it's his DNA, his hair, his fingerprint, some mark that he has been there. Exactly.
So it sounds like they found something. And one of the other problems, too, is you have a lot of searchers. When I say something, some sort of DNA. And like you said, they'll give your information to the DNA lab, right? But, I mean, when the search happened, all these people converged on the scene, so they're going to be leaving DNA as well. So then it's kind of like,
Right, the paramedics. Well, you try your best to preserve the crime scene first. You really try. That doesn't always happen, and there's different quality. There's different ways. You know what I heard that in Nepal, today in the U.S. you see a crime scene, they put the yellow tape up. The police go in, and people are crime scene people that collect what they can and take pictures. And they have like a new 3D camera where they go and they got a 3D picture of the crime scene. But in Nepal, I talked to this guy. He does, stuff like this all over the world. He educates different police departments how to handle it. He says in Nepal, if you have a crime scene like this room, they'll actually come in from the ceiling, and they will not walk in the crime scene area. They will suspend themselves over the crime scene and collect the material that way, so they don't disturb anything. They
must wear masks and everything. You wouldn't want to have a cold and start sneezing over.
Right.
You're lowered in on a rope and you're sneezing.
You sneeze. No, you don't want to do that. That's not a good deal to do that.
Yeah. Okay, well, Zozo for the 48th time asked, how many innocent people have been released because of new DNA evidence? You don't probably have a number, right? But lots. Right?
I don't know. I think, a couple of hundred. I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know that, but you'd be surprised. By the Innocence Project's been rolling along for a long time, and Barry Scheck, and Peter Neufeld have been working on it. So I imagine by now, I think it was 300. And you have to read the biography or the book, whatever, by Kirk Bloodsworth, the first man who was released because he was exonerated by DNA evidence. He had like 3 dates with the electric chair, dates with the death penalty, and they were all kind of appealed and moved on. Mm-hmm. His mother died. He had absolutely nothing to do. It was a murder of a little girl. I think in Ohio, she'd been like with her grandma, and she said, look, I'm just going to go down by the lake. And never saw her again. And two little boys, saw her, and she was looking for her dog or something. And they were looking for frogs. So they said, we can't help you. And then they looked up on this hill, and there was this guy standing in silhouette on the hill. And he said, I'll help you find your dog. And then, they never saw her again. She was found killed later. And this guy, Kurt Bloodsworth, was arrested because for no reason. He had no alibi. He was home watching TV. But he was a very heavy guy. And the eyewitness said it was a very thin, kind of tall guy, silhouette on the hill. And for some reason, he got on the wrong side, and he got arrested and convicted of murdering this little girl. He had nothing to do with it. And at that time, there was no such thing as DNA exoneration. I heard a fascinating talk by him at one of the conferences, and he said that he was in trouble. He knew he was in trouble because the court had appointed him an attorney. And the attorney said, listen, I know every inch of this courthouse. I'm going to get you off. I know how to do this. The attorney got up, he turned to walk away, and he walked right into the wall. He missed the door of the hearing room. So Kurt Bloodsworth went through all this, but he read everything he could while he was in prison. And one of those, I think, was the John Grisham book that talked about DNA evidence. And he thought, oh my God, maybe. So he had his attorney go to the prosecutor to the courthouse and ask about the DNA evidence that was found on this girl's clothing. She had blood or semen on the clothing. And they said, oh, the evidence has been lost. We don't know where it is. So the attorney went to, one time, short after that, went to the courthouse on a Saturday, and he just walked in, and the janitor comes to him. And he says, hey, what are you doing here? It's a Saturday. And the attorney says, well, I said, I'm working on this murder case. The guy's, on death row. We're trying to find the evidence from this murder of this little girl. And the janitor out of the blue says, oh, I know where that is. I clean up that. I know exactly where it is. I see that all the time. So they went and they got her clothing, and there was no DNA match. And he was exonerated, and it turned out the DNA matched to somebody in a cell right below his in prison. He knew that guy, wow. And the guy was in prison for another reason. Oh man, that guy must have been looking at him every day going, ha, yeah, ha, right. So Kurt Bloodsworth, he has turned that around. He got out, and he's turned it around to a nonprofit that helps people, when they get out of jail and they're exonerated, what do they do? How do they? So he's like almost a saint. He's been. It was not how his life intended. Life is intended because he was just a normal guy. He was probably just not a factory worker, but not an especially skilled guy. Yeah. And now he's really able to.
Is he doing the Innocence Project? Is he doing he's the one that runs?
He probably works with them. No, he's not in it officially. He does something else, but he is. He's a very almost a saint. He's given a lot to pay back. Help pay forward from his own experiences. His name is Kurt Bloodsworth, and I recommend you get to know him. He's a really interesting guy.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, we donate to the Innocence Project too.
Good for you. Yeah, good for you. Yeah. That's good for you.
Yeah, let's see. Wait, Cairo asked something up here. He said, do you have any thoughts on the Stephen Avery case?
I really don't. I think it's so bollocks by now that nobody's ever going to know the truth.
Yeah, it's all over the place.
Does everybody know about Samuel Little?
Oh
Everybody
yeah,
know about-
he's the guy the serial killer all around the like 90 something people, right?
yeah, and he paints pictures, he colors pictures of
Yeah, it's
his.
amazing. Isn't it amazing that he has a memory for every victim after all those years that he can actually
and
paint
not
a
only
picture?
that, but not only that, but a memory of what happened and where it happened. And
It's crazy.
That's how they finally nailed him. He was talking about like the arches, or he was talking about a pipe near a brick factory or something outside of Birmingham, where it's railroad crossing that had McDonald's by it, and that was a gal in 1993.
And there's more out there. I mean,
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
I'm in touch with the people working on that case. There's Angela Williamson, there's Jim Holland, Christine
Yeah.
Palazzolo. And I've asked them how is it going, and they say pretty much have it locked up. That they took years to straighten it out, but they said they really liked the ID discovery program on him. He said that it was more accurate than normal. It's not hyped, it's not over emotioned.
Yeah.
They said they really liked it, and she said they had a chance to edit it and kind of make it right, tell the right things. She said that unlike a lot of the programs, it was very close to the truth and not very exaggerated or overdone.
Yeah, he was an absolute monster. Cairo up there, he every time I bring up Samuel Little on my show, he goes, "Oh, I hate that guy," and I knew it. I was about to say, and then he typed in, "I promise I won't say how much I hate Samuel Little." yeah, he can't get pass up on it.
And what I really liked about the whole story that I heard was James Holland is a Texas Ranger. He's an expert on interrogation, getting witnesses to talk and everything. I met him in Florida at a conference. He's like 10 feet tall. He wears a 10-gallon hat. He wears his Texas Ranger outfit with the belt, the gun belt and holsters. And he says in the beginning, he says, if you don't want to hear what I have to say and you object to my language, you can leave right now. I could care less. He's that kind of guy.
I say that same thing on my show.
Okay, and I say that every day.
I know.
I'm coming in the kitchen. I come in the kitchen for pancakes. Listen, if you don't want to hear what I'm not going to. You don't have to eat pancakes with me. And so he's just a guy, and he was the guy. By the time he got to Samuel Little, he went to go, interview him about a possible connection to Texas, because he's got to have a connection to Texas to do this. And he went in, and Samuel Little had not had a visitor in 3 years, and he doesn't have access to, couldn't call out. He didn't have access to television, radio, or internet or anything. So by the time Jim got there, the guy was starving to talk to anybody. So Jim kind of just parlayed his way into, and pretty soon Samuel Little started looking forward to seeing Jim come in so he could confess some more. That's what I heard.
And I think they'd like to finally get it out too, like, oh man, I was so good.
Well,
look at this one.
If it wasn't for just a few little incidental things they figured out or thought might tie to this gal, that 93 women would never have been discovered. He was completely under the radar for years.
I wonder if it felt like he was just going to keep it all the way till he died, right? But then once he gave a couple out, it felt cathartic to him. Like he liked that, or not cathartic, but more like he felt sort of empowered, like he was this cool guy, and he could just tell.
He liked to tell the story, like when you travel, that's your bag. You like to tell stories when you travel. What happened, or he just was a serial killer, so he liked to tell the stories of what he did when he was a serial killer. I mean, we all have our hobbies. If you have toy trains, you're going to talk about toy trains to your friend. If you're a serial killer, you're going to talk about your victims and your serial killing. It's like his hobby. So it wasn't like, oh God, I feel so guilty, I've got to get it off my mind. It was more like, hey, let me entertain you. I got a story for you. So
he wasn't really like Israel Keyes, the guy that, another one that Cairo, he's just so into true crime, it's crazy. But that guy, he didn't want to tell anybody. I mean, he literally killed himself. At the end there. I mean, he had a map and all that, but he didn't want.
There are some of those.
Let's see.
Yeah. So come on. Any more? Come on, people, write in. Tell me.
Well, next time we're going to get you set up so you can be reading the comments at the same time.
Yeah. Are there comments coming in? I mean,
yeah.
I just see you,
a lot of them are commenting on what you're saying, like
it's full of bull, or
Well,
Maybe
there's
she's got
there's
something.
that too. Yeah, we got a lot of that. No,
Okay, you do.
nobody's
Okay, well,
nobody's
I
saying
am.
that.
I am full of bull. But you mean I got away with it? Okay.
Yeah. Hey, you could have been a criminal. Think how good of a criminal you would be. I mean, you would know
I
exactly.
know how to get away with
Yeah,
it.
I
The
mean,
way to, it's
yeah.
too late now because no matter where I go, the minute I disappear, somebody's going to hire me to find myself. I
Oh,
just,
and then you'll come out and say, "Look how quick that was."
yeah,
Right?
right. I did. If you want to hide, let me tell your audience, change your name to like Susan Smith, not that one, to uh, Bill Jones or William Jones or something so bland that they'll never find you. Change your name, put your birthday, change your birthday. They'll never find you.
Yeah, let me ask you something. What was the first time? Like, what made you one day think about having it solve a crime? Had you been doing something prior? I know we talked about that earlier, but there must have been that sort of eureka moment. Do you remember what was going on with yourself?
No, I don't have eureka moments like that. I have more moments of like, that's interesting. Maybe that'll work. So it was like that when I first went to the Orange. I don't know why I got to the Orange County DA, and I did I just ran one Y-DNA thing for them. I don't even know how I got there, but the Grim Sleeper thing was interesting because we were minding our own business, and then this detective from the LA County Sheriff's Office called, and he said he was going to be in Orange County for the Rodney Alcala trial. He was the dating game killer.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said, I'd like to come by and see the Y-DNA stuff. I said, okay. So he spent the whole day with us, or most of the day. Then he left. And so we said, oh, that was kind of interesting. And that's where, I said, oh, he's African American. And I could see his face change, but then quickly he changed back. He said, well, he's African American on the male line? I said, yeah. What does he look like? I said, I don't know, but he's African American, so he's going to have dark skin. Well, how do I know that? Maybe he's Caucasian. He was, I think, backpedaling because what I told him was important, but he didn't want me to know. And then so later in the week, it was funny because in the courthouse, the air conditioner failed, and so court was canceled for the afternoon. He was already in Orange County, so he came over for another half an hour to do some more. Talk some more, and it was all very interesting, and then he left. So that was the Grim Sleeper, but I think they had suspicions he was African American. They had a witness who had been shot and raped and was on drugs, who escaped, who said that he was African American. They didn't know whether to believe her, she was out of her mind or not.
So what year, you can remember when these websites started happening, like 23andMe and...
Oh, 23andMe goes back to maybe 2006, 2005. But, it took a while to catch on.
Well, what's weird is it seems like it would have been a quick... Like, you're pretty soon. When was the first year you did this? 2000...
First, no, I was doing Y-DNA in 2010.
Okay.
So Y-DNA was already 10 years old. You see, the first thing they did in 2000, when all the companies started forming like Family Tree DNA, the Y-DNA was easy. I mean, you could, DNA on a stick, just give your buddy a swab, and that was easy. It was cut and dry. Did you match or not? It was easy. And that went on. It's still going on today. But the autosomal didn't kick in until a few years later, and then that 23andMe did medical stuff at first, and then Ancestry came online maybe 2010.
Okay, so there hasn't been like this wide ancestry research thing until when? When was? I mean, you could do it manually, but this is based off of DNA. So how long has it been?
Yeah.
DNA related ancestry for the public, basically.
2000 Y-DNA. Y-DNA was the first time you could just type in your credit card, order a DNA test, swab it out, and there you go. You can find out if your brother's related to other Fitzpatricks.
But to me, it seems like somebody could have thought of this earlier. Like, it just seems like as soon as you uploaded that, you'd go, wow, this comes back with relatives. You'd think somebody...
No, well, you don't upload it.
Or however it worked. I don't know how it worked.
You mean in general? In general, you mean?
Well, you send it to somebody and they put it in the system, but it seems like somebody that would have popped into somebody's head, at like a detective or somebody that might have sent their stuff to DNA to one of those websites in 2000 and went, wow, that's weird. So when I send this in.
No, because you had to have a swab, first of all. Now you can imagine a detective might take the swab and kind of mess it around in a little saliva solution of somebody. But really, at that point, genealogists were considered nuisances. This, up till when I started getting into people, like I said, in Seattle, they didn't want to listen to me, but I said it anyway, and I got through to them. But I was one of the few people, I guess because I have a science background, I know how to talk to people. I don't have trouble getting into people, but at that time, genealogy was considered useless, stupid. I didn't get it, whatever. And so it was like a whole different world over there of these people that are trying to build their family trees and find grandma's birth certificate. No, we don't have any use for that. It was a completely different world.
Yeah. Well, hey, check it out. Look at Cairo up there, the big fan I was talking about. He said, "We love you, Colleen. You are literally a legend, and we all appreciate your time tonight."
Oh, that's nice. So nice. Thank you for saying that.
Well, here's the thing.
I can't see the
you
the
can't
chat,
see it. Yeah, we'll get it next time. But the thing is, I talk about you a lot, and everybody likes you. But I think now that you've been on the show, everybody's a big fan of yours.
Yeah, thank you. Well, now you see now I'm here. Hi. You can talk about me all you want. Just say nice things.
Yeah. And then what did Dennis Stewart, the guy from, the Schneeoberholzer.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Dennis.
He says,
hi.
Let's see. Schneeoberholzer has been in the forensic DNA phase for about 6 months now. Does she have a guess on how long it will take? I mean, he's just so into that. He's got...
No, I'm telling you, there are cases we have cases that are 2 years old. I think DNA, though, may have a couple of cases that are longer than that. The average solve time is 60 days. And I can't tell you how many hours that goes in, but it's about 60 days for average number of whatever that is, hours in genealogists. There are about 10% of the cases that can be solved within a day or two, or a few hours a day, very quickly. Mm-hmm. And then on the other side of that 60-day average, there are cases that take 2 years or more.
And it all just comes down to how, like, if you get fifth cousins right off the bat, you're kind of in a bad place, right?
Well, you can be. Fifth cousins, it depends. Yeah, we had a case that we were able to say that this person, whoever they are, was from Yemen. And so in GEDmatch, they had maybe 10 matches at most to this guy. I have thousands. He had 10, and they were all eighth cousins. That one's not going to move forward too quickly.
Yeah, and I think it is sort of, there's probably certain groups that might do a genealogical service compared to others, like maybe socioeconomics. There's all kinds of stuff that go into that.
Yeah, well, it's Caucasian Europeans with disposable income. End of story.
Yeah.
And more people are getting, African Americans more are concerned. I'm going to say a broad statement. It's not always true, but more where they're from in Africa, because the last name of a lot of African Americans is only 150 years old or so because of the Civil War. Mm-hmm. That's not always true. But then the question is, where do I come from in Africa, which is not going to really be supplied to you from GEDmatch or from Ancestry, not necessarily, kind of.
Right.
But and then the Native Americans have a completely different system of genealogy, as do the Oriental. Oriental people have a fantastic system, and they don't need necessarily need GEDmatch and all the stuff. The people that really do it are Caucasian Europeans who had family who came from Europe, settled in the U.S., and have disposable income, just like me. And that's where you're going to solve your cases. I will tell you something really interesting. I've done Y-DNA for years now, for 10 years now, let's say. And there's always a discussion that prisons are overcrowded with African Americans. There's some kind of inequality going on there. But the cases that have come to me, I'm telling you, 3/4 are Caucasian. So the ones that come to me through Y-DNA are just completely hopeless. And so they say, Hail Mary play, let's try Y-DNA. I'm only talking about Y-DNA. 3/4 of those cold cases are Caucasian European. while such a high percentage, I don't know if it's 3/4 or not, African American are in prison. So you have to say, how come I get 3/4 Caucasian and the rest are in prison? And I pondered this question, and my answer is that probably African Americans are more likely to commit a crime against somebody they know, that they're less likely to commit stranger crimes. Caucasians are more likely to create a crime or harm somebody they don't know. But the African Americans will harm. So African Americans may be convicted or arrested more or found out they are the criminal. I'd say maybe it's easier because of their social connections, rather than these
like, for example, on a weekend, there's a bunch of gang shootings and 20 people get killed. Well, everybody's going to know who the people were on the other gang and everything, and then they're in prison, right? Where I see exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. So I'm saying that's probably somewhat of the difference. But let me just put that out there, that
maybe
it's just an interesting fact. 3/4 of my cases are Caucasian European along the male line. But so that's kind of interesting. And very few are, I think, very, very few are Oriental. Maybe 2 out of 100 something. And then, Native Americans are a slice, and then Hispanics are maybe 15%.
Yeah. Let's see. What else we got here? Somebody asked something up here. Hold on. Are there any... Well, you're not going to... This isn't really... I mean, you might know it, but it says, are there any statistics on how many active or suspected serial killers are being investigated? I'm sure there are. Yeah, there are.
There absolutely are.
Yeah.
I don't know, but we were talking about that. I think that when they created the interstate highway system, that was a concern about serial killers getting along.
We did talk about that. The truckers we were talking about on the phone the other day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We were, and I don't know, but they have a statistic on that. I just don't. Maybe 100. Maybe there's 50, 100, something like that.
Yeah. Let's see. Now I got to scroll up. I know there was a whole bunch of them. I don't see. Let's see. Anybody? You guys have any other questions? I mean, I'm sure, we could do something where I have a post and they'll write them all down and I'll have them all sitting here ready. But I thought
whatever. I'm fine. I didn't come equipped with a bunch of questions on my own.
We're just going to wing it. That's how we decided.
Yeah, I just thought we'd just kick around the old serial killer ball for a while, or, I'd wear my serial killer hat for a while. Trying to think of interesting things to say, but it's
every single thing that you said is interesting. There isn't anybody in there that went, wow, that wasn't interesting. As a matter of fact, if you scroll up, it says, very interesting. Wow, that's incredible. The whole show.
Oh, really? So, okay, I'm glad, because I don't, without the questions, I don't have an audience in front of me. If I'm a really good speaker, I go and I do this all the time. I can see the audience. I can see if somebody's fallen asleep, or it's after lunch, or I can see what everybody is thinking. I can get that, and I can kind of maneuver around and do the right thing. But I'm in a vacuum.
Yeah. It must be weird for you because you're staring at just me. Like all you see is me, I guess.
I see me and I see you.
And then a minute ago when I went to the bathroom, it was just you staring at the screen.
Well, I was trying to be entertaining while you were in the bathroom, and I said, well, he's probably in the bathroom. I hope he doesn't stay too long.
Okay. Hey, that case that you solved, I think it was in July, maybe you could tell us about that one, the Johnny Crisco and Anita Louise Pateau.
That was in fact, that was the case I told you from 1968 that we solved because she was from Maine. That was Anita Pateau. She was from Maine, and that's the man that killed her. I didn't really participate too much in Johnny Crisco. He was already dead. The DNA kind of got to the Crisco family, and they had several brothers. So I think they got swabs from like one of the brothers but he had a tissue sample somewhere. He was already dead. So they were able to identify him, but that didn't identify her. And the outcome is that's the case I talked about where we knew she was from Maine in the first half an hour.
Oh, I
and
see.
I could even probably have told you the county she was from. But that's the one where the relative gave us the obituary that said, Connie died in 2015, survived by all these people, including her sister, Anita, who we haven't seen since 1970. It was like, okay.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing: is I think that there's all these cases in these smaller towns that I guarantee they, I can't guarantee anything, but they have probably a good chance of having DNA in some of these, where there's an assault, sexual assault, and they have the clothing and things like that. Maybe they did some. And they just don't really. Some of them don't even know this exists. Really, it's kind of bizarre at this point. But
Right.
it just feels like somehow, if we could get a hold of some of these people, and they can extract DNA, then you can use you, and then you can be on the news every other week, giving a speech on a podium. Even though maybe you don't want to do that.
No, I want to tell everybody, I'm doing this because I like Greg. We talk all the time. I go on podcasts, whatever. I am not a media person.
Yeah.
Right? I'd much rather do my work and solve cases than be on. That being said, I do have one confession to make. There is a program that's going to be we tried to film it in March and it got COVID and everything, but it's called Blood Relative, and it's based on Margaret. They approached Margaret and I about modeling it on cases we did on DNA Doe, but really I'm the main character. And it's kind of unnerving, because there's two women that solve crimes. All right.
Who's playing you? Who's playing you?
Melissa Leo,
okay.
Who's won if you know her, she's won an Emmy, an Oscar, Golden Globe, People's Choice, Directors Guild. She's the top. Melissa Leo is playing me.
Okay, like this lady right here. Hold on. This lady?
That's her. Yeah.
All right.
And she's been on, I can't remember all the programs she's been on, but she's playing me. And my character's, I'd say, stronger than Margaret's. And it's to the point, I'm from New Orleans. They're filming in New Orleans. This character has a brother who's law enforcement. I have a brother who's law enforcement. This character has a Scotty vest. I'm wearing my Scotty vest. The character also has my same high school science fair project. It's not me. They use that as a basis in their stories. But if you knew me from high school, you could say, oh, okay, that can't be two. I know who they modeled her after.
Are they going to base any of, on real solved, maybe some of your, on the DNA Doe site, there's a lot of amazing cases that you guys solved.
I can't talk about the script because I'm not allowed to, but right. It's loosely based on. Okay. And this DNA, we're like creative consultants to make sure the DNA comes out. And there was some aspects of New Orleans that I helped them with because I'm from there. And I said we do things this way. So if you want to make it right and authentic for the show, this is the way you have to do it. If she lives in New Orleans, you got to think this way and do it this way. So there was a lot of input we had, but because COVID, they were down there, I'm telling you, they had the cameras, they had the locations, they had the actresses, the clothes, the costumes, the script. They all sat around, they do I think it's called like a table read, the last time they read it without actually going out there and filming it. And the next day they packed up and went home because of COVID. This was 3 weeks after Mardi Gras. So it's all been shut down since then, but now they're going to start filming in January, but they're doing COVID prevention stuff. So
you like Bones, like that. There's a show called Bones out there. Okay, and there's the doctor, it's based on it, Temperance, I think their name is, an actual real person.
Yeah.
Obviously the stories get really crazy and dramatic and stuff, and I'm sure you weren't maybe running down an alley at night trying to figure out whose DNA something. But maybe they'll put that in the script.
I don't think it's like that, but
okay.
No, I play the same person I am. I'm very, kind of brainy, kind of strange. Strange.
No, I'm just kidding.
And now all my relatives are being friendly because they want to be in the script, but It's out of my control. All my friends and relatives, hey, be nice to me and you can get in the script. No.
Well, it'll be cool to see it. Now, somebody up here did have a question. It was by an Irish woman named Susanna MacGiula-Padraig. MacGiula-Padraig.
That's it.
And she
That's
said,
my name.
Well, she said, we chatted years ago about getting this Fitz from Oregon to donate DNA, and I never heard if he did. So that's your name?
I don't know. There's so many of us out there.
Okay. Well, she said that
Fitzpatrick is the English version of McGillifardrick.
Oh, is it? So is that what the Mac Gilla?
Yeah, Mac Gilla.
Okay.
Gilla means servant. Is the son of the servant of Patrick.
Ah.
And Fitzpatrick is the English version, but Fitz means bastard. So it's bastard son of Patrick really is what my name means, but
wow.
But it's Irish. It's Irish. It's
so
not
Susanna
French.
right here. Okay, so I can make fun of Susanna now. So she is a servant, right? Susanna is she's the it's Mac Gilla-Padraig. What does that mean? So she's the
I think a girl would be called Nick Gillifardrick, and Mac would be the male.
Okay.
I think, but I'm not the expert. But she should surf into the Fitzpatrick DNA study, or she should, whatever. But if she wants to write me, fine. We can have like a little Fitzpatrick email exchange.
Yeah, maybe she can send me an email and I'll forward it to you. Then you guys can go,
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm okay. There's lots of Fitzpatrick out there. Lots of activity trying to pull our story together.
So is this show, is it happening? I mean, this is it's already being produced and everything. Like when's it going to be?
Yeah. It's already, and it's going to go. Usually you film pilots, and then they take 3 or 4 pilots, and they pick the one they want, and it goes to series. But I think because of Miss Leo and the subject matter, it's going to go direct to series. And I think that they're going to start filming in January.
Who's playing Margaret? Do you know?
I'm sorry, I don't know. It's on the website, but I don't know. It's called Blood Relative.
Okay. Huh. All right. Well, we'll definitely be checking that out.
Yeah.
And you'll have to come on and tell us how accurate it was.
Yeah. Well, I think it starts out kind of accurate. What do you mean by accurate?
Well, does it really feel like it was you, basically?
Yeah, it does
like later
already.
on.
I've read the script.
Oh,
yes,
really? Okay.
It does. But I have a feeling as time goes on, maybe there'll be somewhat of a departure because this, you develop the character and then you get used to the character and everything. So who knows? I may start doing things the character did. I may go in the other direction. I may say, "Oh, that's great. I like the dress she's wearing." So I'll try it. We don't know, but it's called Blood Relative. Melissa Leo is playing me, but I'm really the main character.
Well, she wrote.
I am a character anyway.
Yeah, she wrote down here. If you ask my dad, he says our Fitz clan is the only one that doesn't have the illegitimate thing going because we didn't mix with those Normans.
Yeah, I know it is. It is, and it's the only Fitz name that's Irish. She is correct. It is not a French name. It is all the other Fitz something or other is a corruption of the French word for fils, F-I-L-S, which means son, and it was Fitz, F-I-T-Z, and it means illegitimate son.
Oh, so you're into linguistics too. Jeez.
How about that? Yes, I speak several languages, but Fitzroy is bastard son of the king.
Well, I speak Irish, Australian,
do you really?
English. That's weird.
Those are all English-speaking countries by any chance?
Yeah, well, that's what the joke was. Let's see. I don't have the accent down, though. When I try to do Australian, I get made fun of.
G'day, mate.
Yeah, see, I say that. Hey, how was that? So I say, g'day, mate.
That's good. That's close.
Yeah, but I get in trouble for it. I get like Zozo, and well, you can't see her, but she's in there. I got like a bunch of Australians that watch the show.
Oh, they do. Hey, great.
Yeah.
Hi down in Oz. They live in Oz.
Yeah. So, well, heck, we've been on here for 2 hours.
Oh, really? God, it just flew by.
Time flies. It. Yeah. But yeah, we should do. Have you come on more regularly.
I hope it went well. I mean, it's usually on podcasts. I'm on the phone. Or over. I don't do that many with the whole audiovisual. I hope it came out all right. Next time I'll try and lose some weight before I go on again.
Well, no, you look fine. The tint though is about circa 1972 photograph that's been sitting on a shelf. You see the lighting. You know how like those photographs look from 1970? I'm not really sure what to call that.
I'm sorry about that. That's it's because they have dye in them, and the dye keeps developing, and finally they get kind of pink and yellow. I'll have to change that next time.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, so how about next time? What we'll do is I'll even put a post, and we'll have a ton of questions, but let's try to maybe, I don't know if you have any more thoughts on us right now paying for, at least getting the ball rolling on this case with the 1961 hitchhiker.
I have, this only came up in a couple of days, but I do have I do have a way. I have an idea of a nonprofit that would help us do this. Okay. Because that way it's tax deductible, it's all clean above board. I'll ask. I know a lot of people that I can ask. And I think that they'd be interested in, cooperating with us. If not, I'm thinking the Bibb County Coroner might be connected to like the Police Benevolent Association or something like that, and that the donations could go down there, and then they would look good. Make them look good and make them look like they're really helping this case, and that might get local people excited to give some more.
Okay.
But they just did this a couple of years ago, and it was like a real high. Everybody was excited, and it went nowhere. They did CODIS, and it didn't work. So now they think that, they're afraid that people won't donate again. But I think thanks to the donations from Gray Hughes Investigates, if they see that in the paper and people are all excited about it, you wouldn't have to start from zero. You'd have a bunch of excited people already, and a bunch of other excited people would join them.
What we could do is, we might not have something ready to go by in 4 days from now, for what we're talking about. So I'll probably donate but I'll front, let's say something happens in 2 weeks that they go, sure, I'll just send the same amount of money. I don't know, 2,000, whatever, as a partial something to get something going. And then maybe at the end of the month, I'll transfer that back. Something like that. I mean, it's kind of technical.
I'll figure it out so it'll all be just right. Everybody gets a tax write-off, and everybody we help this guy. I'll figure it out.
Yeah, no, I think it'd be awesome. I think that'd be a really cool one to solve.
I think so. I really would love to. Poor guy. He was down on his luck, and what happens? He's in a car accident, and he gets killed. And
it's weird, too, because it sounds like he was going to, like we were saying, get into the military, and that would have started a whole life that probably would have turned into something, a better situation that he went from, right?
Yeah, who knows? He may have wound up on drugs somewhere out in the street.
But let's do the happy version.
No, but you look at, just read the circumstances of what he had with him. He had clothes with him. He had the cigarettes. And it just seems like he was the kind of guy. He wasn't homeless. He wasn't on drugs. He was just probably pissed off at his family. He didn't see any future there, so he's trying to find a future somewhere else. Some people do very well. Some people do not. But I bet he would have done well. Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, we're going to have you on here again pretty soon. I'm going to stay on for a little bit and just ramble away. But, man, it was so great having you on. It was just as awesome on video as it was on the phone. Except it's even better on video because then I can see you. I can tell that you're laughing at some of my jokes, at least when I can see your face, right?
Okay. Well, listen, I enjoyed it. Hi, everybody. Bye, everybody. I'll be back soon. And if you want to try and support the fund to get this guy identified, he's Gray will fill you in, but he deserves it. He's one of the cases I'd really like to see solved.
Yeah, we actually went over it either yesterday or the night before, the whole thing. I read through all the newspaper articles, and everybody was really excited about it.
Okay,
all right, good. So I think we're really all on board for helping.
We're good with that.
Let's do it. All right.
Hey, let's do it. All right.
All right. Well, hey, thank you very much, and I'll send you an email later. All right. Thank you.
Okay. I'll see you guys. Bye, everybody.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, oops. Yeah. Well, anyways, that was awesome, wasn't it? I mean, I told you. That's what I was telling you guys. She's just such a cool person, right? But a lot of, it's hard to, when you tell people that, they go, oh, yeah. But see how awesome? She's very smart. I mean, like genius level shit. I mean, just, sometimes it's like, whoa, So there you go, everybody. And that's what we're going to try to help out on some of these cases where there isn't really the funding in these small towns. And I just think it's, I mean, look how amazing the Freak family is, right? Like this year we donated, you can look on the screen right here, 20,500 so far. Well, we're going to probably do another 2,000 at the end of this month, which will be 22,500. And then next year I'd like to donate half of the money. I mean, it'd be great if we got more next year, but at least 10,000 towards next year during the year towards helping out to solve these old cases of either unidentified bodies or some sort of a murder genealogy situation. I mean, that'd be great to help solve one of those by paying for it. We're not going to be solving it, but we're going to be helping fund it where it wouldn't have happened, right? So maybe get the ball rolling in places where it wouldn't have. Hey Ada, what's going on? All right, you were listening in the background. She always says she listens but doesn't comment. Yeah, she's amazing, pioneer in the field. She doesn't get the credit sometimes publicly for that kind of stuff. It's other people, but she's the real deal. You can just tell by listening to her. I mean, she's she makes you feel kind of like, whoa, her brain's amazing. But at the same time, you learn a lot listening to her, right? So, yeah, hit that subscribe button. Join us here. Help, we do, people send in super chats, PayPal. We just do this every single night of the week. And at the end of each month, we donate a lot of money to charity. And it also helps my channel going, keep going and doing what I'm doing. And I'm so lucky to have the generous Freak family that allow it to happen. Yeah, that was so awesome. Yeah. Yeah, it was just like talking to a buddy, I was kind of, you guys were had so many questions early on, but I couldn't find them. But next time what we'll do is we'll literally, now that you know her, maybe you guys can look up some of the stuff that she's done and then ask questions. And we'll create a post for that. Maybe you can put questions in there. We'll have her back on. Well, thanks, Jay. Yeah, what was cool is today I emailed her and I said, hey, you want to come on? So it was that easy, it's not like, it's sort of how a friend would do it. I consider her a friend. We talked many times and she's really nice. We laugh and joke around. And you're a Mac instead of a... Yeah, she's... yeah. She's literally a doctor, right? Anytime you've got a doctorate in a science, you're a doctor. I don't call people that have a doctorate in human studies a doctor, but a lot harder. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Next time I'll get her set up where she has the chat going on the side. so she can see what's going on too. Although I don't, one of the problems with that is people tend to just kind of keep looking at the chat all the time. And I liked how she just kept talking and filling us in on stuff. Thank you, Sarita. I mean, it's like we get the same problem when people call the show just on a phone call, and all of a sudden they're not talking, and they say something to somebody in chat verbally, and then you realize, wow, they're on the phone talking to me, but they're now reading the chat and talking to those people. Right, Sassmare? Yeah, she's beyond smart. She's, I think you'd put her in the genius category, to be honest with you. No, nobody's calling in. Those are just numbers from before. There you go. Yeah, I get triggered looking at something in the chat. That's right, end of the month. Or we could do something where we donate $1,500, save $500, and then during the month I'll donate $2,000, so then we'll have $2,500 to go towards something. I like donating to charity every month though, so we might have to figure something out on that. There might be a time where I have to transfer, instead of donating at the end of the month, it pays back what I contributed to the DNA fund, I guess, because we haven't really built anything up. So thank you, Treva McCoy, or Treva. Is it Treva or Treva? I think I've said it before. But Daudio Caspian Horses rock. Yeah, she's very, it's not, like, for her, it's not about the money part of it, right? Unfortunately, it takes money to do stuff. I mean, it'd be great if you could just wave a wand and things get done, but, people also have to make a living and live, right? So Identifinders is a professional, not when I say professional, it's not a non-profit, Identifinders. It's still, they charge very little compared to other places for doing the same thing. It's going to be a cool show to watch, don't you think? Think how rewarding what she does is, right? Think about it just for a second. Well, thanks, Zozo. I mean, what she gets to do is literally give answers to people who have been looking for answers or just had no clue. And, man, that must be the most rewarding feeling ever. Just as soon as you solve it, boom, you're just absolutely on cloud nine. I was thinking that we could call it, that's exactly what I was thinking, Amy. That same thing. I was thinking of her name, and I said, well, there's no Colleen. Oh, but Fitzpatrick for Friday, So maybe when she comes on, it'll be a Friday. But it was funny, I thought that exact same thing during the show. Yeah, she definitely is one. But I thought it was really cool how there was no trolls in here during the show, really, that I could see. And you guys are just so impressed with her. And I mean, you can't help it, to be honest. You get on the phone with her and it's, I don't know, when she really starts getting deep into something. One of the things that would be nice to know is have the basics for DNA. So maybe we'll have her come on and she can do just sort of a basic DNA and the different types of DNA, a sort of a class almost. And then after that, we'll open it up to the questions that we collect or something. What do you guys think of that? Yeah. Well, I told you guys would love having her on. I mean, you can go on the internet and you'll see her. She's at a lot of these different events where a case was solved. And yeah, because that's one of the things I'm not really clear on. Like, I'd like to have an illustration of a SNP, or I did it. I went online and looked, and or Y DNA. What does that look like, three-dimensionally? What is autosomal DNA? And then there's another one. There's like 3 of them, or hell, maybe there's more. I don't know. Yeah. So it also shows you guys I wasn't inventing that I communicate with her. See, it's not like other people who have an interview going on with somebody going back and forth with a fake, as if you were the one interviewing, right? Like, I don't need to do that. If I'm going to interview somebody, I'll have them on the show. Because I know some people, oh, come on, you don't actually. Yeah, I know most the people that know me didn't not believe me. I think one of the kind of interesting things, though, was her comment on the Delphi case, wasn't it? Hey, I'll let the DNA people know. Why would he have said that if there wasn't DNA? So it kind of makes you think that, yes, there is DNA there. So, anyways, you guys, I don't really have much more to do tonight. That was basically it for me. I was going to have her on, and she was gracious enough to stay on for 2 hours. Probably send her an email here in a minute. Hopefully she's watching. If you're watching, hey, how's it going? I don't even know if she knew what the video ID was. I got to get, next time I'll get her all set up with all that. What'd that say? What are you talking about? You mean the interview with C.C. Moore? Yeah, the fake one? Yeah. It's ridiculous. Who would take your time to make something like that? Just to fake it's just weird. Why not just play the freaking interview? Yeah. And so, her and I are sort of similar in our humor or whatever, in the way we talk. That's one of the things I liked about her. I mean, she's a hell of a lot smarter, I'm sure, but what I'm saying is that, she just says what she's thinking. She doesn't sit around and, worry too much about what somebody else is going to think about it. I usually get the hell for it after the show, though. Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of fun. I mean, she's easy just to sit around and chat with, you know? And thank you guys for being so kind to her. I'm actually almost really proud of how you guys are. There's other channels that have a bunch of idiots that show up and in any interview, you know, and just turn it into a hellhole. And you guys were really interested, engaged. So. That's what I tell people, you know. I mean, like, you know, earlier, Jason Hebert, he's got a show about missing people. He did he interviewed Carrie, who's Libby's mom, right? But there was a lot of trolls in there that showed up because they always show up during the Delphi cases. They can't help themselves. They're just psychos, you know. You know, people are saying, "Hey, how come you're doing this? Why are you looking around? Why are you doing it?" And he said, "Well, we need, you know, they'll send me your suggestions and I'll, you know." And here's the thing: I don't know if you're still there, Jason, but just be you. Keep doing exactly how you're doing your show. Do not listen to any of those people. Do your show exactly the way you do it, and do not give a damn what somebody suggests to you, because then you're acting at that point. Okay, so just be yourself. All right. Absolutely be yourself. And if they, you know, the people that don't like it, they can go do something else. You know, the thing is, here's the reality, everybody. Watch this. Watch this right here. Okay, so when Colleen was on the show, she was on this monitor right here, but I can see her there and over here in my streaming software. But when I'm on this one, it looks more natural because I'm looking at the screen that she was on. Okay, now way over here is another screen, and that looks really weird because I'm looking away from her. Okay, but I'm never going like this. Hey, how's it going? Wow, you know, I mean, I think that's crazy unless you are like what in her situation, where she had nothing to look at other than there's a camera that's filming her. Okay. So the scripted live shows, people can stare at the camera. Okay, the shows where there's things going on. We're not going to be staring at the camera, and I don't want to stare at the camera. Do you understand that? How boring is that? Just staring at it endlessly. Yes. Now listen to me right now. There's a case. Hold on. There's a case I'm looking at called Now, what we do is forget it. All right. Yeah, it's not gonna happen. So for all of you out there who really care that somebody's staring into the camera, and you need that, first of all, grow up. Secondly, you're an idiot, and thirdly, if you don't like when other people don't do that, don't watch it. All right? Thanks. Good stuff. I know I look like one. Yeah. Hey, good night, Zaps. Oh my God, it's totally boring. Could you imagine my show if I was just staring in the screen the whole time? Trust me, it's really cool on a map. They're really close to the other person. Hey, everybody, I'm not going to show you the map because I got to stare at the screen. Now, listen, Thanks, Jay. Now you got me self-conscious. I'm never looking into that damn camera again. No, forget it. I couldn't see it. My eyes are so bad right now. One of these days I'll do it again though. I'll freak you guys out. I'm gonna show up with no headphones, No visor. Hey, look, I got my old visor on, by the way. The Under Armour one, the one that Kubi did for Halloween. Yeah. Right. Hey, you know what's crazy is I've told you guys this before. Just picture this for a second. All right. See, for me, when people stare at the camera, it's like the guy in the park sitting on a bench doing nothing. Just staring blankly forward. Okay? That's weird. Now, and I've told you guys this before. I don't condone smoking, but I think you need to be a smoker if you don't have a book and you're going to sit on a bench in a park. Okay? Because if you're going to go to a park and sit on a bench and you have nothing to do, you look like a serial killer times 50, okay? Because what are you doing right now? You're just sitting on a bench staring wildly out into nothingness. Now, if you're going like this, it looks like, hey, you're thinking now, right? You got some thoughts going on and you're just smoking while thinking. Without that cigarette, okay? Without that cigarette, you look like an absolute whack job. No, try it. I want one of you, Jay, tomorrow, go to a park near where you live and sit on a bench with nothing. No cell phone, just your clothes, and that's it. Just sit down and sit there and stare. Yeah, it's you definitely need a cigarette. And then have people judge, what do you think of that guy? Oh my God, he must be a serial killer. And then as soon as you put the cigarette in your hand, ask those same people, oh, he's just some guy, he's got some thoughts, very pensive at the moment. So there you go. That's a true thing right there. You know what I do right now? I kind of miss it. I gotta do this. Let's see. What you guys want? I got to do my robot intro. I haven't done this for so long. Let's pretend it was dark here again, and then hold on. Yeah! Don't you guys remember that one? Yeah, so here's the thing, is the robot was for the exact same reason that I was telling you guys earlier. Is one time I was doing my show and I was looking around and some moron came on and said, God, Gray, he's always looking around. He's always looking around. So I thought, oh, well, maybe I need to look like a robot. So I started a show with that. And then everyone was laughing, and I came on and I explained the story. Then it sort of became part of my intro for a while. Yeah, maybe I'll have to bring that sucker back. What do you think? Let me try it one more time. I think it might be, this screen might be better for it, though. Let's see what this one looks like. Okay, hold on. So if it was like this, and then... Hey, look, I made myself laugh, okay? That was bad. I actually saw my face when I went by with my eyes really wide, and that made me laugh. So I had to move and do something else. Yeah. Yep, I made myself laugh there, unfortunately. Yep, I'll get back to the robot. Maybe next show, huh? Yeah, we'll definitely have to bring that one back. So, all right, everybody. Well, thank you guys for showing up tonight. I hope you guys really enjoyed that. I did. And it was cool, too, because I had to really use the bathroom. And she just ran the show. Went boom! Right through it. Yeah, so anyways, thank you guys, and let me get the...
Hello? Hello? What's that weird sound? I can hear something. Hey, I'm gonna click the thunder for every $10, or if it's $10 or less once, and over that, you hit it that many times, okay? Alright. Here we go. Thank you, Kubi. Sarita. Zozo. Zozo again. Zozo again. With a cat eye donation. Marine Co. Lee D. Michelle Nicholas. Smevens. Kevin Brown. K-Dog. Mary Clark. Abika Landscape Maintenance, LLC. Jen H. Mole Girl. Cairo. Claudia Dubauer. Cairo again. Jessica Schubach. Glenn Jackson. VP. Cairo. Cairo again. Kubi. Susanna Macchiola Padre. With a cat eye donation. Sarah M. Sarita. Treva McCoy. Or Trevor McCoy. Tadio Caspian Horses Rock.
That was really cool, man. That was a really cool show.
Yeah, hey, Mary Lou, do you mind if I just finish this sucker off, all right? All right, everybody. Thank you all for showing up tonight. Hopefully you can hear me. And I'm going to play the rap now, and you guys can chat for a while, all right? So thank you very much again to Dr. Colleen Fitzpatrick, founder of the DNA Doe Project, and now of Identifinders. And we're going to try to help her fund some of these cases to identify an individual. Individuals out there that have no identity or DNA from a crime scene. All right, so there you go, everybody. Thank you very much. And as I always say, until next time, be safe out there. Yeah, I've been doing this true crime thing for quite a while now. And during this whole time, I have not seen one person that is a crime dissector, a rejecter. I'm a certified human lie detector.
Gonna get you on a stretcher. I'm leaning like an old projector.
Crime sector
He's my nectar. Professor Green is gonna give another lecture. Crime connector, freak connector. And I'm always gonna be a blood protector.
What the hell was that?
I know, just try something new.
And I'm meaner than a spectre with a vector on his pector.
With all respect, ya.
Just remember I've a temple fucking check ya.
I have no agenda. I'm a pretender.
And I'll serve it to you straight without the blender.
And in the end,
I'm gonna send ya on a mission to reveal the true offender. Yeah, so I'll just get right back to work. All right, everybody?
all right, that was really neat. Thank you very much, Dr. Colleen Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, she was pretty cool. Man, that was really interesting stuff, you know, and She makes me feel, like I'm dumb.
Well, you are dumb, John Boy. You know that, right?
Wait a minute, you're dumber than me.
Well, see how you said dumber?
Yeah, but, wow, you're so mean, Mary Lou.
Are you really crying?
No, not really. Good night, Mary Lou. I'm gonna get you.
Gosh, John Boy, you're so mean.
Wow, they almost seem like they're schizophrenic at this point. I'm not sure what's going on with those two, but you guys can sit here and chat for a while. We're going to put the pictures up of the freaks who purchased different clothing items and whatnot, the merch freak family here. And we'll get some of our favorite music playing, which sounds a lot like this.
When I'm in the mood, I sprinkle troll on my food, but I don't eat it. I chew it up and spit it out and repeat it. It's not a treat. The troll is beat. Just one of the ways that I defeat it. Stayed in my groove, and there's a troll on the move. It takes a second to remove, 'cause every time I conclude, the troll is gonna lose. Last time, lizard eye, I see you creeping on the sly. Why you think you're so fly, when you're just a whiny cry. Battle me, you're gonna fry. Gonna send you out to mummify. When I'm in the mood, I sprinkle troll on my food, but I don't eat it. I chew it up and spit it out and repeat it. It's not a treat. The troll is beat. Just one of the ways that I defeat it. Staying in my groove when there's a troll on the move. Just takes a second to remove, 'cause every time I conclude, the troll is gonna lose. Nice try, lizard eye, I see you creeping on the sly. Why you think you're so fly, when you're just a whiny cry. Battle me, you're gonna fry. Gonna send you out to mummify. Time to say goodbye.
Yeah, good to have you here, Dennis. I knew you'd be interested in that one. Yeah, I'm thinking of buying one of those waterproof drone. Da da da. it seems like you can actually see into the water. You land on him, and the thing can bend just enough where you can see into the water with the drone. That seems like such a great search and rescue kind of a drone, man. And you know what's crazy about the drone that I saw? It can actually fly in the water. Like, it's on the water, and you can actually steer it using the regular drone mechanisms, you know, or controls, I mean. Is it orange? It's an orange color, right? I don't like swimming in the ocean at all. I don't swim where I'm food. And I'm a good swimmer, like a competitive swimmer. But you ain't gonna see me in the ocean. Yeah, but listen, I know what whale sharks are. However, anywhere that there's a whale shark, there is another shark that will eat me, okay? All right, freaks. Be safe out there. Back to the cold cases tomorrow and some of the newer cases in the news that got preempted by the incredible Dr. Colleen Fitzpatrick, the legend. And not in her own mind, but literally in everybody else's mind, which means she really is a legend. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. We will see you tomorrow. Yes, and put a comment.